The makeup on me. We're live. All right, everyone. Welcome to Political Head Trauma, where if Head Trauma had a podcast, it would sound like this. Today we have Trent Christensen coming on at 3 o'clock. He's running for our Attorney General. That'll be good to chat with him. And other than that, news. We had Sylvia was coming on, but
we'll reschedule her.
Yeah, we're rescheduling her because she's got some things to attend to.
Yeah, we will get her on soon. So she's a candidate for governor. But welcome everybody. I hope we're giving you enough time to tune in and get ready to participate if you like. As we go through some fun stuff.
Yeah, we're going to chat a little bit about the news today and, other things.
You know what? There's a common theme in the news today, I noticed.
What's that?
A lot of the things that you were sharing regarding victims of people who shouldn't even be in this country.
Well, that's crazy, but I was thinking we'd get to that towards the end. I just want to do make this one this beginning a kind of a Tooele roundup.
All right. What I mean? Well, yeah, but you want to talk about the fun time we had at Lincoln Day dinner?
We could definitely chat about that.
That was Saturday. We had a lot of candidates come out, a lot of citizens come out and electeds. And thanks to the Utah Motorsports Campus, we had a beautiful evening. Tricia Bolander made the centerpieces and they were gorgeous. Spiros and his team did the catering and it was, I'm still hearing great things about the meal that was served at our dinner and it was so good. So I think it was very, very successful.
Yeah, I think you did well. You put it together well. It was very, very successful. I do know that you've been swamped for the last couple of weeks.
And it's not over yet. Caucus is on the 5th, which is just a few days away.
Super Tuesday is this upcoming Tuesday. So everyone get ready for that.
And if you have not pre-registered for caucus and you're a Republican and plan on going, go to utgop.org and register. It's so easy. It takes maybe 60 seconds. And just so that it will, if you are attending, it'll tell you where your caucus is, what precinct you're in. It will get you your credentials.
Share it on screen right now, what it looks like.
And it is it's just going to make everything a lot easier, quick, efficient. And it's just, like I said, it's new for all of us. So your county parties are learning this along with you. But the state rolled this out with a lot of intent and thought put into it. And I think it's going to make caucus and the experience a lot easier. And if you cannot attend your caucus that evening, you can register as an absentee and still vote for your presidential choice. And if you have somebody that you want to be a precinct chair, vice chair, delegate, you can also put their name in with your absentee ballot. Just make sure your ballot gets in the hands of your precinct chair.
Yeah. So right now you're seeing on the screen, when you go to utgop.org, right there in a big red block is pre-register for caucus. Click on that. I am not a Republican, therefore I have not seen what's past this page, but you click on that.
You can click on it and then it'll just say, do you know your state voter ID? And if you say, I don't, it'll find it for you by looking up your name. And if you're a registered Republican, we get it from the LG's office and all the data is from the Lieutenant Governor's office since that office runs elections. And then they'll give you that info. Then you just go from there. And then it'll send you an email right away letting you know your QR code. And then it gets scanned when you get to caucus. And try to show up at your caucus at 6. That'll give you an opportunity to make sure you get signed in and scanned in. But it also gives you an opportunity to talk to your neighbors about candidates running in these different seats. We've got the senatorial race, gubernatorial race, gubernatorial race, actually.
Presidential, the
We're doing
triple P.
the presidential preference poll. And then you also have your local county races. We've got 2 seats up in the county council. I think the treasurer is running unopposed, as well as our assessor. But talk to your neighbors. Talk about how you feel represented and what you would like to see different. And, ask people who are looking for your vote as a delegate, do they have a candidate that they're running for or on behalf of? Or are they open to research all the candidates and get back to you? How are they going to communicate with you? And make sure that you're informed about what they're deciding and how they're processing information they get. And are they committed to go to every event to get to know these candidates on your behalf? Use that time. And that way your voice is heard, and the delegates that you vote for know that they're accountable to your precinct and that they will be. So, the precinct chair may need a little help. I'm going to center us just a little bit more because I feel like I'm on the corner here. The precinct chair may need a little help as far as scanning people in and getting credentials out or counting the votes. All of that's done in front of the group. And, if you're willing to volunteer, there's an option right there when you register to be a volunteer. We really need volunteers. I think that we're expecting a very big turnout because of the presidential poll and our participation in Super Tuesday. The media will be waiting for our results, and it's every single county in the entire state, and a number of states actually, that are participating on Tuesday night. So pre-register.
Super Tuesday is a big deal.
Pre-register so that your time is the best. It's the best. So get there at 6, make sure you're checked in. 7:00 the meeting starts, and you could probably wrap it up, I believe, by 8. Just depends on how many people show up in your precinct. But, you might be out of there by 8:30, and you will have done a great service to all of us who are voters, because this is such an important system that Utah has. It's the caucus convention system. It gives front and center attention to our voters in front of candidates. And I think it keeps candidates more accountable. And a lot of candidates are running just caucus convention.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of that.
Signatures.
So the good thing about the caucus convention, what it takes is you have to have, which I know we do, and I believe most counties in Utah have, is you have to have a diligent county chair. But it makes it so that money isn't as impactful, where Holly brings all the candidates out and gives the opportunity for them to get in front of her people, and then her people get to meet them, ask them questions. This show, we're trying to be a part of that system where after this is all over, we're going to start having Democrats roll on, where the Democrats didn't have a caucus and we're pinched for time, and the Republicans have a caucus. We want to try to roll as many Republicans as willing through.
Now, the candidates for Democrats on caucus night, they're participating in their presidential poll as well, but they're doing just an election.
I wonder how their presidential poll will work out, where Biden is essentially
the nominee.
Yeah, he's got it in the bag. I mean, they're not letting anyone else on the ballot in Florida. You've got Illinois, Denver, and Maine all trying to remove Trump off the ballot to reinforce him. You
want to see mass hysteria? Remove Trump off the ballot.
I don't know. This is the funnest timeline. I'm telling you, I'm thinking I'm going to tailgate somewhere on election night. I'm just going to get out there, cook brats, eat some coleslaw, and drink some beer, and just, I don't know, paint my face at something. But anyways, but no, the caucus system, I like it. I may not be a part of it, but I like it because essentially I think it makes it so that there's a better chance that the everyman can be a part of this be a part of the political system. I think we need more of that.
It's true. It's a grassroots situation. So if someone you know or you yourself thinks you can do a better job as AG or senator, this gives you the opportunity to not spend $300,000+ to have signatures gathered for you to guarantee your spot on the ballot. This
Or even
you
just
work-
getting commercials where you bring the guys out. That's where you come in. You're like the hero of that part.
But they're only having to talk to 4,000 people instead of the entire 3 million in Utah.
You bring people out and they get to come, and the people are interested, get to come, and you just put them out in front of them. They get to meet them.
Yeah.
They get to chat
fact,
with them.
Trent Staggs will be here next weekend.
Mhm.
And he is going to be meeting with the new state delegates, newly elected, and everyone's invited to come and talk to Trent. Trent put his name in, and he was the first one to kick off our show with us.
Yeah.
And so he's running for Senate, and he actually put his name in May to run against Mitt Romney.
He put it in to challenge Romney, which I think is very impressive. It shows a lot of thirst. But yeah, so Super Tuesday's coming up on Tuesday.
And his event is on the 9th at 5 p.m. at the Tooele County Chamber of Commerce building.
Now, of course, that'll be after Super Tuesday.
Yeah. So now we'll have all our new delegates, but any citizens that want to come out, you come out and meet Trent Staggs. He's the first event that I've seen that's going to participate after caucus. And then people that are state delegates, I mean, even the public, we are going to have meet the candidate nights where we're inviting state candidates one night, county candidates another. And of course, at our convention, we invite everyone to come to convention, and all the candidates are invited to that as well, both state and county. The public can be there. And though they don't vote at convention, just the delegates do. That's an opportunity for you to look these people in the eye and hear what they have to say, and let them get to know your issues, the things that matter to you. Some of you are 1 issue, 2 issue people. Others of you are ready to just burn the system down and start over. Both of those people deserve to have a voice, and I want candidates to hear from both sets of people.
Find out who your delegate is, because your delegate is also voting for you. So talk with them.
Well, you're going to choose them on caucus night.
So
can you hear me okay? Because I get a weird...
The headphones are rather light lately. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I've got everything cranked. It's still not changing it. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to spend about 45 minutes chatting up some news. And I wanted to talk about some local here Tooele news. So all you national people, you can come back in at 3 if you want, or all you statewide people.
45 minutes of local news? How much news do you have?
I'm just going to talk slow.
Oh, come on. Wake up. It's Friday.
So anyway, we all heard about that 9-year-old who shot what is now tentatively being reported, but not officially reported, as their father last week. And so there's a whole bunch of questions being rolled around by the media, like, well, how old can someone be charged, and hamana. And so what's his name? Bentley. He's kind of the PA officer for Tooele City. He's been answering a lot, but apparently the age of accountability in Utah, this will come as no surprise to anyone, is 8 years old.
It's a surprise to me. I know it's the Mormon accountability for baptism.
That's when you get baptized.
But I have had an 8-year-old. And just like I will tell you right now, an 8-year-old can't tell me they want to change their gender, and I'm going to lop their stuff off.
Well, this is for
tell you that
criminal
an 8-year-old
accountability.
Knows. I don't think an 8-year-old knows that death is forever or something like that.
You're probably correct, but they've been drowned in the church. So, I mean, baptized.
Not everyone. Come on. We don't even know if this kid is.
I don't know.
That's a series of
it's a tough one. 9 years
accountability. It's not
9 years old is how old this kid is. And Utah, the age limit to be charged as an adult is 14. So accountability means that I guess they can be criminally charged as a juvenile, and at 14, they can be criminally charged as an adult. I did hear some reports on the side. Now, granted, take this with a grain of all the salt, a grain of the Great Salt Lake. Apparently, the child and his father were arguing over an Xbox, and that's when the incident happened. This is still just a crushing incident. I can't imagine being the mother, the grandparents, the child.
How they say there's no such thing as a bad dog? There's just bad pet owners.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wonder if there's no such thing as a bad kid.
I think it certainly applies.
Because I don't want this kid in a jail. A jail's just going to teach him to be worse. He should probably be in a hospital.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I know where I don't want him. I don't want him in the school with other 9-year-olds.
Oh, absolutely
and
not.
That's just kind of my blanket statement on that. But they haven't officially filed charges on him yet, I'm sure.
I honestly don't know where this goes.
I'm sure the county attorney, attorney general, all of them are probably right now in a big powwow because this is heavy.
How old was the kid that shot his whole family and is in Grantsville?
14 or 15.
He was 14. And his dad lived, but even his dad was trying to say, please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because parents love their kids no matter what, even if they do horrific things. I always say even serial killers have people visit, parents still love them.
Yes.
Jeffrey Dahmer's dad was an advocate for him.
Really?
He showed up to the jail to visit. He was a loving father.
I'm sure I would still show up to the jail to visit.
Right. It wasn't like he said his son did the right thing. No, he was absolutely like devastated by what his son had done, as any parent would be. But that child that did that, his dad was trying to get his kids some help, because kids don't do this. Now, you mentioned an Xbox, and now I can hear people all around the world saying it's gaming. Kids get gaming and they don't appreciate true life and human life. They think that there's a respawn, or, it's the video games. I don't let my kids play video games like that. I play video games that are war games, but I try not to let my kids play violent games. If that's what started this fight, is over an Xbox.
That's just what I'm hearing. I don't know. Of course, this information I'm getting is coming from a teenager who got it through the grapevine of the high school. So it could be incorrect. I don't know. That's just what someone told me about it. Any way you cut it, it is a tragedy.
Absolutely.
It's an awful tragedy. All right. So BLM.
No, what's to come of it though? What's happening now?
They're still waiting to charge him.
Okay.
They haven't even pressed charges yet. I'm sure because of his age, because of the sensitivity of it, they are probably, I imagine this is a whole bunch of game planning this. Because, I don't think any attorney general or prosecutor's office or anything wants to have overreach seen against a 9-year-old, right? So they probably got little helpers running around pulling books off of walls and reading through it. So the what do you call it? The Native American coalition of groups, including Lakota People's Law Project and Black Lives Matter and a couple of other Native American groups, are setting their sights on having names changed in places. And I first read it and it says, oh, well, Grantsville is under target for this. And I was like, Grantsville? So I'm sitting there thinking, what could Grantsville have to do with that? Grantsville, and I'm thinking, is there any Native American or anti?
Isn't there a Native American reservation not far from out west?
Yeah, there's we got two of them. We got the Skull Valley Goshutes, and then we've got the Goshute Confederation, which is closer to the Nevada border.
But what about Opapa?
Ibapaw?
Ibapaw.
But it's right next to the reservation.
Okay.
It's a kind of a ranch area. I think it's
But
held
that's again,
by
it's out
Ensign
west,
ranches.
but it's nowhere near Grantsville. If we're talking
No.
miles, it's pretty far.
But so I read that headline, so I dive in, I start reading it, and they're looking at changing the name of a peak, Red Skin Knoll. Not sure where it's at. They've got a USGS picture there of the Vernon Mountain Range, and it says right underneath it, Redskin Knoll's not under it. So I don't know where Redskin Knoll is. I'm very familiar with the mountains around Grantsville, the mountains around Tooele. I don't know, but
How long has it been there?
Forever.
Who named it?
Haven't a clue. They don't care. They just want there's a list of over 300 names of places in the US they want to change.
And here's my question. Who's
50
they?
of them are in the US.
Because I think it's the Navajo that came out in favor of Washington's Redskins team because it was named after a coach that they absolutely adored who was Navajo. And he's the one that loved the name and they picked it in honor of him. And then when the NFL was all over them about changing their name from Redskins, now they're just called Washington's team or something, the Commanders. I think it was offensive to the Native Americans that it was named after. And can I just say, they got rid of Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben.
Uh-huh.
These were famous icons that every little kid knows who Aunt Jemima is from our age. We've known our whole lives. Never did we look at her with disdain or pity. It was like, oh my goodness.
I remember on
Aunt
American
Jemima pancakes are my favorite. And
on American Pie, she was looked at quite differently.
Okay, I'm talking about
Do you
when we
remember,
were kids. And it was a really
we were
good
kids
feeling.
when that came out. We were in our 20s.
And here's my
weren't we?
point. Why would you erase an icon like that? I don't get the feeling that it's the Black population doing it. It's like these white virtue signaling people who think, well, that's disgraceful and she shouldn't be okay, then put a suit on her. But she's still Aunt Jemima.
Aunt Jemima.
Uncle Ben, the best rice.
Aunt Jemima was named after an actual lady who was like the first Black movie star, actress, professional. She was I can't remember her name, but she was
It was a tribute.
Super famous. But I'm saying it's not about Black or white or Native American with these things. It's about progressives. My feeling is it's about progressives trying to dominate the language.
Absolutely. And what they're doing is they're hurting huge idols that the country knows, all in the name of virtue. And yet I would be curious if the Black population is angry about Aunt Jemima. I want to know what the Indian population thinks about what the Kansas City Chiefs. They just won a Super Bowl. Does their city want to change their names? Or is it just a small group of purple hair, blue hair,
there it is.
Whatever color hair.
I have
white
another
people
convert.
going, that's disrespectful. I'm sorry. They're the best team in the league, according to the NFL this last year.
All they're trying to do is to try to set out new boundaries to keep you on your toes. That's it.
I'm calling Bravo Sierra because that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, they read a name and,
Utah Tech.
They go to Pucker Factor 15.
Do you know how of people I know from Washington County that are still disgusted they had to
Yeah.
change their Dixie College. Did I just commit a crime by saying the word Dixie
You
College?
dead named a college. You're going to
You
get a
guys,
cease and desist order.
How easy is your life that this is what you worry about?
Well, I'm sure mom and dad pay for their college, loan. So
No, these are Karens all over the country.
Yeah,
Karens and
and mom and
Darrens
dad
or
are-
whatever that are grown up who are fighting the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't want. I mean, what, we're gonna have people going after the Utes next?
yeah,
I mean, come on, you guys.
They
These are
could.
names in tribute.
they're going after Squaw Peak.
What are we trying to do? Erase the
they-
Indians?
They want to change it to this word right here. Kiv, KYHV Peak. That's another one they're going after. But yeah.
You guys, what is going on in your lives that this is bothering you? And I can see it. If it is a Native American group that is like, this is offensive, we want this done, and this Native American group has got a majority based on the entire group, then yeah, talk about changing it. But
I could see if it was a foul name.
a lot of these Native Americans named these landmarks because they were the ones who originated there.
Well, Tooele, the town we're in, is a Native American term for who knows what, for something. But I don't know. I don't know. I did know that it would get Holly kind of spicy, which is why I brought it up. But also, when you think about it, it's just progressives trying to change the word. I mean, the phrase politically incorrect comes from Soviet Russia, because the phrase would be, when you said something, the guy would say, although you may be correct, you are politically incorrect. So that's what we're looking at. Another local story. This is our good buddy Chad. Supporters of the Utah flag file federal lawsuit. So we've had Chad on talking about the flag before, when they changed it from the blue Republican style flag, Republican in the, not as
Republic,
the party, but the
Republic,
the political
Union.
style. The Union style flag, the blue with the seal on it. They changed it to the tricolor flag with the beehive.
You know what? I'm fully in support of voters having a say in what we do with this flag. And I wasn't at the Hill the day that the change of flag was voted down. And a couple of legislators in the 12th hour changed their mind. And I thought it was kind of squirrely. And there's a bunch of people out trying to get signatures to get this petition to get on the ballot. And I can respect that. That being said, there is a part of this group that has gotten just downright belligerent, and it's turning people off. And I think that I'm really sad. I'm sad because I think the voters should absolutely choose the state's flag. And if we choose to keep it as it is, like we overwhelmingly did in our county, and our legislators voted in that regard, at least Bridger Bullender and Tim Jimenez, both of them listened to their people and voted. And then now that there's signatures, yes, I've signed the petition because it should go on the ballot. People should have a voice.
Bridger even came on the show and talked about how someone who supported changing the flag told him why he supports it, because he's like, oh, it's not as recognizable. Other states have more recognizable flags, and this will make ours more recognizable and easier to diminish because the Union style flag is.
Why do we care if it's recognizable?
And I understood that point. I remember going to the Savannah airport. You walk along, it's a small airport, and along every ceiling joist, they've got, or ceiling rafter, they've got a flag, a state flag hanging. And I remember ours was their airport's kind of like I guess a T, and ours was just a couple off center, and it was, if you pay attention, you could recognize it, and I could see how some people might have an issue with that. But I mean, even on the stance that it's an upset and it's an extra costly burden to the state when, let's face it, we're already kind of getting
why?
molested enough for taxes.
Why? What? I want to know what made them decide that Utah's so fine, everything's so great. Let's invest this money into changing the flag.
Yeah.
Like, we had so much going on, and I just want to know what the push was and the agenda behind it, because it does feel very agenda driven.
Well, Chad's got a story with that. He thinks it's a progressive push to change the flags. He's come on the show and talked about it.
I've heard that. And I've also heard, though, people that are in tourism, people that are, Utah's the best state. So we know that. It's the greatest state.
Yes. Remember, Utah is that state that is just south of Colorado and just east of Arizona.
But they wanted to be able to market Utah in a new and fun way, according to, I guess, McKay.
Instead of getting McKay. Instead of getting rid of the DABC, they thought, we'll get a new flag. That'll draw everyone in.
So all that in mind, look, I think the drawing and stuff looks cool on hats. It looks cool on sweatshirts.
I think that would have been a good idea to have an additional thing.
Yeah. To have something that says, hey, we're Utah and all of this, but ceremonially at our buildings, at important events, I like the traditional flag. And I think that there is so much tradition in that flag. Every little piece of artwork in our flag represents something. And I don't like that in the final hour, a couple legislators went, yeah, okay, I'll vote against the people who've been overwhelmingly. So that irritates me. And I know that is a big passion of Chad's. I think for him, it's more than just the flag. And I don't mean to speak for him, but having many conversations with him, he's made it clear. This is not just about the flag. This is a slap in the face to every Utah voter who used their voice, said, no, we don't want to change our flag. And yet their representatives in the final hour decided, yeah, I think it's okay. Now, you get a lot more with honey than you do with vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where we're going, and we're losing it. When the proponents of this flag and the people who are fighting to keep it now, a lot of people who were on their side, who signed their petitions, who were in full agreement and were even angry. Well, the news cycle has long moved on. And these people are worrying about inflation, and they're worried about their kids' health and their kids at school. I mean, so much has moved on that the flag initiative is kind of fallen to the back of their minds. And now what's happening is now they're just, people that were on their side are starting to change their mind because they don't like what is it? I'm trying to say
constant,
the blatant. Now it's just getting rude, mean.
Yeah.
When people can't even take a picture.
But Utahns are
like
notoriously rude.
Let's say I'm having my Lincoln Day dinner. Now, at my Lincoln Day, I didn't have the Utah flag at all because we had it at a racetrack with the Legends Hall. We have a giant United States flag. Now, when you pull into our park, we have the ceremonial Utah flag, the United States flag, and then the UMC flag. So we're very traditional and have been.
I didn't notice they're still running the Union flag there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I also saw Lincoln Day dinners where they had the new flag and they had the other flag. And the ridicule at candidates who were getting their photo taken in front of this flag was out of line. These candidates didn't put that flag there. These candidates are at somebody else's event, getting a picture taken, And then they get ridiculed because they got a picture taken in the backdrop. They're supposed to get it taken with the new flag. And now they're getting ridiculed for even saying they like the new flag. This is a problem, you guys. When we can't even, the flag is not ugly, the new Utah flag. And it does stand out. Texas has a flag that stands out, and everyone in the country knows Texas's flag. I think that's kind of where they were going with it. I don't know who's profiting from it, because there is some questions there on the person who sponsored the bill. Is he a high investor in this bill? Will he profit off of this
I
bill?
wish I'd have got ahead of it and invested in a flag company.
But I'm afraid, and I'm trying to share both sides, why people are upset, but their way they're acting, this belligerence and this accusations. Like, what if I was in an event that had a Utah flag? Am I supposed to not entertain and engage
are
with
you
my
supposed
electeds?
to shun everything at that event? And should that be your primary question? Now, here's why I really wish I'd have got involved with the flag company, because they went and they changed every city hall over
directly. It's got to be a little higher.
Okay.
Yay, you're here.
Okay, we're back, Dwayne.
I'm going to end this stream and we'll start a new one.
End it and start a new one?
Well, otherwise it's just going to be a bunch of blank stuff on the one that's there. How much time did you guys put in before it crashed on you?
We started at 2, so
Okay. So there's a half hour there. That's good.
Yeah, as usual.
Let's
But
I'll
no,
just
we
end
gotta
this and
leave
we can
this.
speak.
Just leave this stream running because we've got. How do we sound, by the way?
yeah, can you hear us?
You're just
okay?
a little bit echoey, but other than that, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be a little echoey, but we've got Trent Christensen coming on. He'll be on here in just a minute.
Oh,
so
my buddy Trent. Okay.
You'll have to invite him in.
You want me to send him a message?
I want to. Can we make it bigger?
I sent him an email with
Okay.
it on there. Just double
Well,
check.
then it should be the same. Because I just sent Holly. I just sent you a link, but you're in. So, did you do a phone link?
I sent him the link just to come on to here.
Yeah, I think it's the same. But
Yeah, it should be. It should be. I'm going to try to get us set up so that Holly wants to be able to see herself on camera.
Well, I want to be able to
Make sure.
see if I look terrible or not. Oh, jeez.
But that is hard to see because that is tiny.
it's not like your really nice camera. It's a little. There's a little jitter.
Oh, I'm sure.
A jitter?
A little bit. There's a little jitter. It's all in the video. Your audio is coming through fine.
Okay, that's fine. What's
There's
that?
Trent. Trent's here.
Oh, he's on now. Okay, bring him on.
Hey guys.
Trent, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Our internet crashed out here, so we're doing it on a cell phone now.
All right. Is this working? What I've got going? Can you see me? Is this all good?
Yeah.
Trent, you're better than Holly and Jared.
Nobody's better than Holly and Jared. Come on, let's be honest.
No, they're on their backup. Okay.
Hey,
Fair enough.
Is there a way to get this off and make us all bigger so we can see?
I
them
haven't a
better?
clue. I don't know.
It'll get bigger when you'll get bigger when I do this.
Well, there, Dwayne just dropped. It looks like.
He didn't. He just pulled.
No, I just made it. I just made it bigger for him.
Okay.
I just don't know how to make this.
Just here to help out the team, Trent.
Thank you for putting up with us,
Cool.
Trent. We're just never had this happen before. So there's an
That's all
internet
good.
across the county, I guess. Or just in our little
The CIA will stop at nothing to keep this from happening. It's shameful.
Yeah,
It's true.
let's do it now. You may hear me say what because I'm old, I'm deaf, and I'm trying to listen to a phone on speakerphone. So
Fair enough.
if I need you to repeat something, I will. Dwayne is still listening. Dwayne, could you share this out to all the everywheres?
I'm not sure.
I can.
Or Dwayne, did you say we stopped recording and started over?
No, I left it streaming.
Yes.
It was very weird because you guys were gone and it's still streaming. Okay. So,
Okay, let me check.
but you're not here to talk to me. You're here to talk to Trent. And
I
now you're
know.
back.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that.
All right, let's just get on the Trent.
Let's do it.
Trent,
I think
want you
they're
yourself,
on their
please.
hotspot, Trent. So go easy on them. Okay.
Fair enough. I understand. I'm happy to do it now. We can do it now. We can do it later. We can record it now. And if you want to re-record some stuff, I'm flexible. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it now. And then what we'll do is we'll look at having you on again later for a better, larger screen interview.
Yeah. That
So
way you
tell
can make
us-
sure my answers
tell us-
are the same. What?
Tell us a little bit about yourself
Yeah.
and where you're from, and a little bit about why you decided to run for Attorney General in the state of Utah.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the question. So I'm from Utah, grew up in Utah, went to BYU. I did my mission in Chile, came back, went to BYU Law School, graduated magna cum laude, went back east, practiced law for a while. I did complex business litigation. I protected companies that were being sued by the federal government. Worked at a law firm. I filed briefs in front of the Supreme Court, appellate courts. I did that for a number of years. But then I came back to Utah, and I've had that experience, the litigator experience that I think you need if you're going to be an attorney general. But I've also had a different kind of experience that I think is really valuable and necessary for an attorney general. I've been a CEO. I'm the only candidate in this race that's had that kind of experience. Been a CEO. I've run a company. I've made payroll. I've had to make hard decisions, regarding personnel, things like that. Done that for a number of years. I'm currently general counsel for a tech firm. It's based up in Farmington. It's called OmniTech. We do predictive AI with the military, with Hill Air Force Base, and with a number of defense contractors. And the reason I see those two things are both kind of important is, listen, the Attorney General's office is 600 people, and 300 of them are attorneys. And those aren't always the easiest people to deal with, right? And if someone comes in and they're a litigator, which a lot of people have some litigation experience, but they don't have the leadership experience to match it, that office, you're not going to run that office. That office is going to run you. And so I'm coming in saying, I have a vision. I have the experience, but that's in the past. I have the experience for the future and the vision for the future of what I want the office to be. So I was approached a couple of years ago about running for this office, and I've been thinking about it for a while. And the trigger for me was September of last year, when I finally said, okay, that's it, I'm getting in. There was a member of the legislature that floated the idea of making the Attorney General's office an appointed position under the governor, taking the voice away from the people and giving it to the governor. And you're seeing that in a lot of instances where other things, instead of being popularly elected, are becoming appointments. And it's just consolidation of power under the executive branch. And it was right then that I knew I had to get in this race, because the Attorney General is the single most important check against the other branches of government that citizens have in a state. It's different than the federal government, but in a state, they need that Attorney General. It's a check against the governor, it's a check against the legislature and the judiciary branch. It's also a check against the federal government and a check against the counties, right? To make sure that everybody's doing their jobs correctly. But it takes somebody who's willing to stand up, take a punch, throw a punch, and do the right thing no matter the outcome. And so I decided to get in the race because I believe the Attorney General needs to be that check against power that the citizens need, even if it means being a check against the power of my own office for the benefit of the people. A state Attorney General has to be the attorney for the people, not for the state. And that's a different mindset that I bring. I'm not the attorney that's going to implement the vision and the agenda of the state. I'm going to make sure that individual rights are protected first against the power of the state.
That sounds great. Now, a lot of people in this state don't understand exactly what an attorney general does, because you will not only represent the people,
Right.
You represent businesses, you represent law enforcement, you have to be the top law dog in the state. So you've got to work well with law enforcement.
Right.
And then you're up. Who's beeping? Is that your phone or my phone?
That's his phone.
Is that me?
All right. It's you,
Yeah.
I think.
Let me turn that
Sorry.
off.
Thought it was us. But you also have to be the top law person. And we've got a prosecutor in Salt Lake County that has not met a law enforcement officer who won't try to convict of something.
Right.
And there's a lot of business aspects where you are working to help businesses. There's a lot of citizen aspects, and law enforcement has to be able to go to you with issues and have your support and back you at the same time. So do citizens, so does the state, so does legislature.
Right.
So will you give people basically a elevator speech about what the duty is of the Attorney General in Utah?
Right. No, I really appreciate that. And I found that a lot. I'll tell you, when I told my kids I was running for Attorney General, and I was like, do you guys know what that is? And they said, you're the most important of the attorneys. And I was like, yeah, no, but okay, yeah, sure. So I needed to, do my job in my house, make sure my kids understood what this job is. And a lot of people have those questions. And I think you put it perfectly, Holly. I think the Attorney General, first and foremost, is the top cop. Okay. And has to fill that role of making sure that law enforcement has the resources, but also the backing of the state that they need. Okay. And to me, top cop means two things. First off, it means that there has to be a relationship between the voice of the people and the AG's office. And by voice of the people, I mean those that are popularly elected. There's only one kind of law enforcement in the state that's popularly elected, and those are the county sheriffs. Okay. Every other state law enforcement, state police, highway patrol, whatever it is, whether it's, a police force that's, run by a regulatory agency, cities that hire their own police forces, the county sheriffs are the only ones that get elected. And as I've gone around and talked to all the different county sheriffs, what they feel is, I'm not supported by the state, which to me means that the people aren't supported by the state, because it's the county sheriffs that put the people that put the county sheriffs in power, right? They've come to me and said, we've got problems with X, Y, and Z. And all we get from the state is, the state will send us cases and say, hey, prosecute this. We're not going to do it. Prosecute that. We're not going to do it. Right. So the county sheriffs don't feel like there's an advocate for them in the attorney general's office. And if there was, you'd be able to coordinate resources. You'd be able to coordinate these cases and make sure that the sheriffs understand, if they're doing their job and I'm doing my job, that they're going to have the resources they need to make sure that the law is actually enforced. Okay. And that's the first thing when I say top cop, you have to make sure that there's a relationship between those county sheriffs and the attorney general. But there's always, you'll get jurisdictional disputes, right? Where the county sheriffs, say one thing and state law enforcement wants another, or you got the county sheriffs sort of pitted against some of the regulatory agencies. Like you said, businesses pitted against the regulatory agencies. And what I've said to the sheriffs is, first, last, and always, I'm going to listen to you, because again, you're the voice of the people. That's why I got in the race, because there were legislators that wanted to take the voice of the people away as it related to the attorney general, right? So you talk to the sheriffs, you make sure you understand their positions on things, and then you coordinate and say, this is what we're going to listen to. I'm going to listen to everybody, but when there's a jurisdictional dispute, when people are confused, who's got the right of way on this, it's going to start and end with the sheriffs. And if you do that, you're going to be able to say, let me back up a step. There's several counties in which I've heard that, they've had some issues within the county. Maybe there's, some accusations of embezzlement, this and that. And they ask the state to help, come intervene. The state's not interested. The state doesn't want to look at it. And so they try to kick it to another county. That county's not interested in helping. So there's no oversight of what's happening in the counties. And when there's no oversight, human behavior just is that, if nobody's looking over your shoulder, people start to, do whatever they do. They sort of treat it like their own kingdom, their own fiefdom, right? And it would only take once of an attorney general stepping in and saying, stop, we're not going to do this. We're going to enforce the law. And anyone else doing things like this in the counties would realize, oh, okay, we got a new sheriff in town, right? Somebody that's going to oversee the counties, be their partner, right? But also set a good boundary. They say that good fences make good neighbors, right? And if you're working with the legislature and you're saying, look, I want to partner with you and let's do everything we can for the will of the people, but don't cross this line. Because you cross this line and then we have to have a different relationship. Same thing with the governor, right? Same thing with the counties. This is what we're going to do to work together. You cross this line and we're going to have a different relationship. But as long as we're within our boundaries, we're going to have a fantastic relationship and we're going to enforce the law for the people.
So can you boil down for us some of those specifics that you've heard where different constituencies have tried running projects up and it's been pushed off? Can you give us some examples on that?
Yeah, there's a case in Carbon County. There's a case, we were out in Uinta last night, out in Vernal, where there's been discussions of, look, there's been investigations, full 50-page investigations that have been produced saying X, Y, and Z is happening. There's some embezzlement, there's improper use of funds, okay? And it needs to be investigated. Well, in our system, the only person that can then investigate that is the attorney, right? The sheriffs, they do the investigation, they give it to the attorney. If the attorney's not willing to look at it, that sort of ends it right there. I mean, prosecutors have discretion to take a case or not take a case. And in that way, they can act a lot like a judge, right? If they decide not to take a case is over, okay? And so when that happens in a county system, there's no one else to take that. So they've kicked it up to the attorney general's office and said, okay, there's this, will you look at it? And the attorney general's office, at least in the cases that I've heard, has said, either they've claimed that there's a conflict of interest and they can't get involved, or they've said that's not something we're going to get involved in. The authority exists to get involved, to prosecute it, to look into it further, to investigate it further, but they've just said no. And so in some of those cases, counties can partner together and they can say, well, maybe we can kick it to this county attorney and see if they want to help investigate. And it's just been something where the other counties in the state haven't been willing to prosecute, haven't been willing to step in and say, okay, let's see what's going on here. And I'm not claiming anyone's at fault. I haven't looked at the details, right? But what I am saying is there needs to be a partnership where state attorney general is open and willing and capable of looking into those cases, so the people in the counties know they have recourse when their system, they don't feel like their system is addressing their needs. And right now, that if the county system doesn't address their needs, there's nowhere else to go.
Well, that's a good point.
Well, I know that our current attorney general has worked tirelessly and is prepared a long time to actually go to DC and the Supreme Court and talk federal lands.
Yeah.
How informed are you on the federal land issue, especially for rural Utah, counties like ours, counties like Washington County, Box Elder?
Yeah.
I mean, 88% county is owned by the federal government. And yet other states have no idea what we're talking about. But, you know, I was told by Herbert years ago that we need to have the presidency, the House and Senate before we dare take a bite of this apple, because you only get one bite. And yet our state, and I know Sean Reyes has been preparing for that trial.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Just opening up the.
And with that
comments.
in mind, we're going to have, I mean, when we've had the president, the Senate, and the Congress, we haven't done anything. And if a new AG comes in, how prepared is that office? I know the office is amazing. I know a lot of the employees in there, they're fantastic attorneys. I'm wondering how much do you know about the federal land issue, and, you know, what would you do in that scenario? Would you go for it? Or you have to wait for the governor to tell you to go for it? Like, how does that work?
If there's no other message that gets across in this podcast, it's that the Attorney General does not have to and should not ever wait for permission from the governor to do anything. Okay. If the Attorney General isn't willing to walk in on day one and just go to war, then that person should not be Attorney General. Okay. They do not need to coordinate with the governor. They shouldn't have to coordinate with the governor, but it would be great if they could, right? Again, it's an approach where you say, I'd love to have the governor's help and provide and present a unified front. Okay. But it doesn't have to be that way. The Attorney General can just, like I said, go to battle for the rights of the people. And so to your point, there's at least, and I want to give Sean Reyes some credit here. To your point, Holly, he's done a lot of work. Okay. He's done a lot of work, and he set the stage for rural Utah to win these court battles. There's 60, at a minimum, 60 ongoing federal cases right now that the state has filed, and that they're, did I do that? Was that me? Did you see that? There's a little thumbs up thing. I don't know if that was me. 60 ongoing cases. There's 60 ongoing cases right now in federal court filed by our Attorney General's office that deal with public lands and rural Utah issues. I mean, there's grazing rights that are being litigated right now. I don't think, you know, the vast majority of people along the Wasatch Front don't understand the actual economic impact of grazing rights and what that means, and how that can affect the state as a whole. There's lawsuits that involve access to trails, right? I recently learned the other day that our dirt tourism, right? You know, the national parks, everything that happens southern Utah throughout rural Utah provides more revenue by far than skiing. But if we're not fighting these battles, and we're not fighting to make sure that we still have access to trails, that the federal government isn't taking over this land and then them dictating what's happening on our land, we lose that revenue source. And if it's not happening along the Wasatch Front, a lot of times the people along the Wasatch Front just simply don't understand it or don't care about it, right? And so I'm not going to claim that I understand all the details, but I know that there's a vast number of cases right now that the current Attorney General and his office, really good attorneys, have put forward to protect public lands. And the next Attorney General has to be willing to step in and fight those fights as if they are life or death. I'll give you another example. In Uinta, out in the basin, there's jurisdictional disputes over the water rights. But because it's not along the Wasatch Front, because it's along what some people call the Wasatch Back, people don't pay attention to it, right? The Attorney General, you know, others may not be sending the A team. They're sending the B and the C team to go litigate those cases. Well, you need to send the A team, because if we lose that battle over the jurisdictional rights of that water, that's game over. Yeah. And that affects everybody. It affects the Wasatch Front, the entire state, okay? And so it's less a matter of understanding the minute details and more a matter of understanding the priority, right? The priority has to be to understand what's going to benefit or hurt the people the most. And you got to put the best resources to fight those court battles for the grazing rights, for the dirt tourism, for the water rights that are happening all along the state. They may not be the most visible. That's not going to get you the most clicks or the most, you know, whatever it is in the media, but it's what's best for the people. And I want to say this to your question. If the Attorney General's focus is to get attention, then their focus probably won't be to fight those fights. And then the only reason the Attorney General wants attention is if they're looking to run for a future office. They want to be governor or senator. It's not what I want to be. I don't want to be governor. I don't want to be senator. I want to serve for Attorney General for 2 terms and then be done. And because that's my focus, I can focus exclusively on what the most important issues are, regardless of whether it's along the Wasatch Front or along the, you know, within the rural areas, because that's where it's going to be the most benefit to the people. And that's what I'm going to do in the 8 years that I'm Attorney General.
Excellent.
Sounds good to me.
I'm curious about the water rights issue. I feel like Utah is asked to give more than other states. And I'm wondering, like, when is Utah going to just put their foot down, have California build their own reservoirs? And I mean, they're the ones who want to go all electric.
Yeah.
When is Utah going to hang on to the resources that we're allotted and that belong to us?
Yeah.
Without giving, I don't want to be a jerk and say, no, you guys should not have
Right.
water, but it's a constant nudge, a little closer, a little more, a little more, a little more. And at what
Right.
point do we say, hey, let's just, we've got 3 million people now, and we've got 1 million people over the course of 20 years.
Yeah.
What's another 20 years going to look like, and how prepared are we?
Well, and this gets back to your earlier question that I want to circle back to. Your earlier question, and it relates to this, was, when's the right time, right? Should we just go for it? Because people said you only get one bite at the apple. I don't necessarily believe that. I see their point when they're saying, look, you don't want to take your shot and miss, right? So you want to be prepared and take your best shot. But to say you don't get, 2 bites at the apple, you can file these lawsuits multiple times, right? And you can fight these fights across different fronts. And this water issue is one of them, right? There's a lot of different ways to split this. There's been different agreements among the states about how to use the water out of the Colorado River and other things, right? And so there needs to be negotiation. There needs to be diplomacy. But at the same time, there has to be an attorney general willing to put his foot down and say, no, this is how we're going to do it. And whether we have to sue another state or sue the federal government, but it takes a proactive, long-term strategy approach to it. And it kind of makes me come back to my point about it's not just about litigating. Okay. Litigation is about strategy. And the person that's sitting in the attorney general's office, it's a little more like being a George Washington and directing the battle than actually in the trenches fighting the battle every day. You have to be able to do both. You have to see the long-term strategy of what you're doing, and you have to be able to direct the ongoing day-to-day, tactical affairs of the office. And so, water, like you said, it's going to be an issue today, tomorrow, and 30 years from now. It's just going to keep being an issue. And so working with the public, working with the legislature, understanding the demographic shifts and how that's going to affect us, re-examining the agreements we've entered into with other states, and then seeing what the federal government's doing, what other states are trying to do, and mapping out our strategy and where we're going to have to enter into litigation and be prepared for litigation versus when we're going to be able to negotiate with other states, right? But it's this ongoing effort. It's not we're going to solve it tomorrow with a lawsuit. It's, make sure that we understand what the demographic shifts are going to be. So in 10 years from now, we're prepared to fight that battle again. Because, there's not going to be more water, but there are going to be more people moving in. And so you have to be proactive in understanding what the strategy needs to be tomorrow, next month, next year, and 10 years from now.
That's a really good point. I'm always wondering, when crimes happen in this state, and there is, let's say, a crime has happened and a police department handles it one way, and the family, the victim, doesn't feel like it's being, let's not say a police department, because I know police departments put all the evidence together.
Right.
They take it to prosecutors, and prosecution is decided by them and not the department.
Yeah.
And so they could have a great case put together, but a prosecutor won't prosecute. How does the attorney general come in and help the victim maybe get some is that something the attorney general can get involved in and help one? Yeah,
absolutely. One of the things that I want to establish, that I have in my plan that I want to put forward as attorney general, is instituting some prosecutorial reforms. And part of that is to set up an office within the attorney general's office that allows victims recourse when they don't feel like they've been heard. And I want to do this across agencies, right? DCFS is a good example of one in which, I know a lot of cases in which parents feel like they don't have recourse. But in this specific example that you gave, have an office, have a division that's set up to say, look, this was my case. This was the evidence. I don't feel like I was heard. The prosecutor didn't want to take my case, and review those. Okay. There's a lot that can be done to make sure that prosecutors are doing their job correctly. And I have a lot of faith in the prosecutors in the attorney general's office and across the state. But there's a problem in my mind with the incentive structure that prosecutors are given. Okay. If I start as a prosecutor on day one, and I know that, I want to rise in the ranks in the office, and I want a promotion, and I eventually want to be a head of a division, my incentive is to get convictions. That's it. I rise and fall by the number of convictions that I get. And so if I look at a case and I don't think I can get a conviction, I either don't take it or I try to plea bargain it, right? I only take those cases, and it's just incentive. It's just human nature. A prosecutor will only take the cases that they think they can win, because that's how they're judged for future raises, right? For future promotions. And so we need to change. I mean, prosecutors are humans. You need to change the incentive structure. Humans react to incentives, both positive and negative incentives. So changing the incentives by which a prosecutor gets a raise. There's been cases where, for example, a prosecutor's, he's going after a conviction, but he finds exculpatory evidence. He finds evidence that would show that the defendant actually didn't do what the prosecutor's claiming he did. It's their legal duty and ethical duty to turn that evidence over to the other side. But there's been cases where that hasn't happened. And there's been cases where that hasn't happened because it doesn't benefit the prosecutor. They have a disincentive to do that. So if an attorney general can come in and change the incentive structure and give them actually give them points for saying, hey, you did the right thing, you followed the law, then you're going to see prosecutors who have the incentive to do the right thing over time, right? But then there's a negative incentive. Right now, a judge makes a wrong decision. Maybe it gets appealed, maybe it doesn't. It's really expensive to appeal in a decision of a judge. And maybe, to your point, maybe a victim or a plaintiff doesn't have the resources to appeal that decision. What do? They have no recourse, right? And so what I want to do is set up essentially what you would see in a business context, where you've got, so many prosecutors. Every single one of them knows that, they're going to be 3 of them picked at random in any given year, for example, and their caseload is going to be taken, and there's going to be a spot check. They're going to pull 5 cases out of that prosecutor's caseload, and they're going to review it. An independent agency will review it and say, did you follow the law? Did you follow the process? Did you turn over exculpatory evidence? And review the entire case and then give a grade. How did you do? And if a prosecutor knows, hey, I now get rewarded for doing the right thing, and there's the possibility that my caseload is going to get audited and they're going to see that I didn't do the right thing, you're going to have prosecutors much more willing to take the cases they need to take and follow the law and make sure that everyone's rights are being protected while they vigorously enforce the law. I think we need to do it with judges too. Pull a random selection of cases from judges and say, okay, did that judge follow the law? Did they follow the process? Were constitutional rights protected? And have that office in charge of making sure that those rights were protected with some teeth to say if they weren't protected, then there's going to be X, Y, and Z consequences. Because again, please go ahead.
Who funds that? Who's going to get you that money for your department to create something like
the
that?
Legislature. And that's why you have to build those relationships with the legislature, right? Like when Sean started the division that's handling sex trafficking, child trafficking, right? He was able to draw some of the money from the budget because what he did is he took people that already specialized in those areas, pulled them out of their existing divisions, and then created a new division. So he kind of moved them over. But he also went and got some new funding for the legislature, specifically to give them the resources they needed to do a deep dive into that area and to prosecute the violations of that law. And so if I'm going to the legislature saying, I want to partner with you, we want to protect rights of people, and we're going to create this new division, there's going to be some resources that they need to put towards that. But I think, please.
This could be called criminal justice reform.
Absolutely.
And it's something that the state needs. We need to make sure that every person, black or white or gray, whatever, is getting fair justice. So there's not a 2-tier justice system, and the victims are being advocated for just as much as, one case to you may make sense, but it may not make sense in a rural community where they don't have the funds to prosecute it or whatever it is. Maybe it's a sticky case all the way around. I like this idea. Do we have internet access?
Yeah, we're back up.
Can we make the
Trent,
switch?
Yeah, Trent, go ahead and tell us about your website real quick.
Yeah.
While we switch over to our
We're going to change
studio.
so we get back in the studio.
Very good.
Internet stuff.
So my website.
Share with us how people can get to know you.
Yeah, my website's TrentChristensen.com. I'd love everybody to come visit. It has a place where you can put your name, your email address, your phone number in. You can get updates on the campaign, and you can volunteer. We can come bring yard signs to your house, bring flyers. It also has links to all my social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram. Love for everybody to come get involved, ask me questions, engage on Facebook. I love having conversations with people. That's how I get to know really what's happening out in the rural areas. So I'd love for people to come and engage. TrentChristensen.com, and then Trent Christensen AG across all the social media platforms.
I'm gonna pop your website up, Trent. Hang on here. Here it comes. Trent Christensen.
Thanks,
How about this? Can you see that?
I cannot.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Here we go.
There it is. Oh, there it was.
Now you can see
There it
it.
is. There it is.
Now you can see it.
Yeah. Those are my kids. Yep. And then you can see along the top, where you can engage with us, some biographical info. We're going to have some policy positions up there. But more than anything, if you want to scroll back up for just a second, Dwayne, Holly, you asked at the beginning, why did I decide to do that? And that picture right there shows you 4 reasons why I decided to do that. My kids are 18, 16, 14, and 12. And they're going to live in this state. We love this state. I hope someday I'll have grandkids. They're going to live in this state. But I need to make sure that this state works for them and for your kids. Holly, to your point, that a crime that's committed in Salt Lake by someone who has the money to hire the attorneys isn't prosecuted any differently than someone who does it in another county who doesn't have the money to hire the defense attorneys to protect them, right? There can't be a 2-tier justice system. It has to be one set of rules, the rule of law for everybody. And that's what I want to do as Attorney General. But let me take that a step further, right? We're talking about criminal justice reform. That has to happen across all levels of government. I'll give you an example. There was an office that was supposedly started by the governor, and it was supposed to be just this. It was supposed to be an office where if someone had an issue with what was happening at the executive branch, they could go to this office and file a complaint. And it was billed as, this is going to be transparent. This is going to be open government. This is going to give people recourse. And a year later, a reporter went and called the number of that office and got a disconnected dial. Went and looked, there was nobody there. The website was down, and it just had never been set up. There was only 2 out of the 5 board positions that had been filled. It was just, again, it's kind of political kabuki theater. Nobody's actually doing the job of overseeing what government's doing for the benefit of the people. And the Attorney General's office can and should be doing that.
So you're telling me that the governor made the promise of this office, kind of started the foundation of it, and then the office died on the vine. That wasn't announced. It wasn't told to anyone. It just went into the ether.
I mean, I want to be fair. When it was brought up that only 2 of the 5 board positions had been filled, they quickly filled the other 3 and whatnot. I don't know, if it's now up and running. But again, it was a year later that this reporter went and tried to dig into this a little bit, and there was just nothing there. And so, Holly, you mentioned a 2-tier justice system. Well, what about, that's just in criminal justice. What about in state government? Like, what recourse do the citizens have? And I say this all the time to people, if you get crossways with DCFS or the Division of Securities, right? I mentioned I was a CEO. I ran a venture accelerator for 3 years, and we would have people all the time that were just trying to raise money for their business, made a simple mistake, and all of a sudden now they've got a felony record because the Division of Securities came in, just slammed down the law on them when they could have just helped them understand the law, right? And now you've got people that are, all they were trying to do is raise money for their company, but they made a simple mistake. And what recourse do they have? That's the question I keep asking. What is the recourse that people have in this state? And it's usually one of 2 things. You either hire a very expensive attorney and you defend yourself, or you roll over and take it. And I think the Attorney General's office needs to be that recourse.
You get a department like the ATF who overnight decides that certain things are banned or illegal and turn people into felons overnight. Right there. Is that the Attorney General we go to? Because I know our local sheriffs can stop the ATF from coming in the county. But if the Attorney General says this is not going to be tolerated, the ATF has no ability to write laws, and that belongs to the Senate. And if our AG stands firm on things, I think we've got a great AG in Texas right now who's kind of standing up to the federal government. I'd like to see that happen, especially where guns are concerned. Utah is a constitutional carry state.
Yes, it is. Yep. And here's my point to that. Yes to the sheriffs and yes to the Attorney General. Like, if we could present an actual unified front where the sheriffs are stopping the ATF from coming in, but they know that the AG has their back, right? They know that they're going to be supported from a state level. Then you have a more powerful stance against what the ATF is doing, because it's not just the sheriffs or, maybe just the AG and not the sheriffs, right? You have to provide a unified front for the federal government to say, oh, these guys are actually serious about this, right? And that's what I think we can do as the AG. AG's office is doing a lot of good with the sheriffs right now. I want to say that, but there has to be a better connection between what's happening at the local level and the state level, so that there's always a unified front when people's constitutional rights are concerned.
Well, have you heard Ohio's got that attorney general that's talking about guns. They went constitutional carry, I think the end of last year, beginning of last year, and he had a study done. He's been catching flack. Every leftist, purple-haired weirdo, all those, vegans and whatever they are, they're all crying because it came out and the study shows crime actually dropped in all except for, I want to say Cincinnati, which tells me Cincinnati is a toilet bowl.
Right,
Blue
right.
City.
That's a different story, right?
Or maybe it's Columbus. It's the
Well, it's like Salt Lake City.
six of Ohio's 8 largest cities saw less gun crime after the state's constitutional carry law took effect, according to the study published today in the Center of Justice Research partnership between the Ohio AG and Dave Yost, which is one of my personal heroes right now, and Bowling Green State University. I mean, it's even a state university did the study, but not to get sidetracked onto that, because I actually want to talk about that later on the show. But I want to say that's a good thing that Attorney General can do is to, if a new law comes out, to bolster, is this law for real? Did it make the change? Show the evidence. And he showed it.
And that's a big part of what I've been trying to say. The next Attorney General has to be willing to do. There's a bully pulpit that the governor has because he's the governor, right? But there's a bully pulpit that the Attorney General has because he or she is the Attorney General. And I think it can be used to greater effect. I keep saying, and I'll use it's similar, but I'll use the example of election integrity, right? If we can do a full statewide transparent audit, right, an investigation of the electoral system, then we're going to be able to see, does it work? And if it doesn't, where doesn't it work? And let's fix those things. So to your point, you pass a law, we're now constitutional carry. The Attorney General has all the authority to run this investigation, to run this study, partner with Bowling Green, right? And then use the power of the office to stand up and say, hey, remember that law we passed? It works. Because you'd be guaranteed that the left is going to try and tell you it didn't work. They're going to run their own studies, or they're going to try and bring up cases, anecdotes saying, you passed that law and look at how terrible life is now. And so that's an example, in my opinion, of an Attorney General who's proactive, seeing down the road, seeing around the corner, and saying the leftists are going to come and attack this law. They're going to say that we did terrible things in this state because we enacted constitutional carry. Let's protect the law and actually study its effects so that we can come out and say, look at what happened, right? And in those jurisdictions where they didn't fully implement it, we can see what happened, right? In those larger metropolitan areas. But that's, again, it's a good example of an Attorney General saying, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to look down the road and see what the left is going to do, and I'm going to preempt it. And we're going to have this study, and we're going to show the rest of the country that this is what works, right? So that whatever people want to come out and say, you made a mistake to do constitutional carry, you can see like, well, that's your opinion, but here are the facts, right? And that's good governance. Even
then, you may find out that constitutional carry didn't work. We all know it does, but we're in dream, purple-haired Greenland where soy lattes are breakfast. Right. But anyways.
Now you hate soy lattes too?
I don't. Soy is not milk. And oat milk, what is that? Where is the nipple on an oat?
There should be a law.
Yeah, there should be a law. I want the AG.
How do you know if someone's vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I still got this beef because I've seen Sim Gill in action so many times, and he's in a blue city, of course, Salt Lake City, where he's not prosecuting the people from the Summer of Love in Salt Lake that were putting our law enforcement in danger. They were putting our businesses in danger. People that were downtown were in danger. Yeah. He wasn't quick to prosecute them. And then you get a actual vandalism at his office, and he's light on crime. Then you get, in the last AG's race, the guy running against Sean Reyes, I don't remember his name, out of Utah County, talked about how he wants to do away with the death penalty. And I don't love the death penalty. I don't. I believe life, is important, and let him rot in jail. Here's the problem. I know in law enforcement that death penalty is one hell of a ticket to get somebody to either confess or not. When that's on the table, that's a totally different animal. Now, when a person is facing, of course, there's millions of appeals, and we rarely impose the death penalty. But when you eliminate it, you take that from investigators and prosecutors as a way to actually get to the root of a crime. He also wanted to do a lot more trials. And my biggest thing was, where are you getting the money? Where are we getting the money in Tooele County to do more trials? Plea bargains, I understand that. There's a need for that. But counties like ours, when we have, say, somebody with a mental health issue or a drug issue, it's not a violent crime. Our county doesn't have any way we don't have anywhere to put them to where we're not putting them in jails or prisons. We don't have an option to put them in rehab or put them back in drug court. Something that was working for a lot of people. Is that something the Attorney General's office could impose, or at least be an advocate for rural counties like ours we could use the money and we could use resources where it comes to rehabilitating the people that actually have a shot? Because I don't think sex offenders can be rehabilitated. I think that science has shown that that's something that, once you're molesting a child, or, a rapist, a serial rapist, those types of people don't rehabilitate per se. And so we need other methods. We need ways to actually, get people accountable, of course, and get them going in the right path, not making better criminals by putting them in prisons when they were just drug addicts when they went in and had no violent crimes, but they come out still addicted to drugs somehow. And yet they now commit more violence because now they've learned how or what to do. Is that an Attorney General issue? Is that something you could see happening, or is that something that requires our legislature?
No, that's an everybody issue. I mean, that affects everybody. And I think every member at state government, county level, city level ought to be concerned and active in this. And so let me address it a couple of different ways. When you're talking about mental health versus violent criminals, right? That's sort of a different area. But the Attorney General, again, has a powerful bully pulpit from which he can go to the legislature and say, look, we have to work on this together. The cities and the counties need the resources to handle this. It's not a violent crime issue. It's a mental health issue, right? And you're not doing anybody any favors by putting the mentally ill in jail, right? And so you have to be able to trust the local prosecutors, but you have to give them the resources, the cities and the counties, to deal with those issues as they come up, right? There has to be that partnership between what's happening locally and what's happening at the state level. And that partnership, the counties and cities need to understand that they have advocates at the legislature and the Attorney General's office to help them get those resources. But on another level, this is point number 2, the state Attorney General can help in those areas. If there are crimes that are not being prosecuted, right? If there are issues that are going unresolved or just completely ignored by a DA, right? A state Attorney General can jump in, can have a say, can actually prosecute, right? And take some of those cases over, but also do it in a way to say, look, we're not going to allow this in Salt Lake City. We're not going to allow this in Tooele. We're not going to allow this across the state. And not just do it and not say anything about it, make it a public issue, right? Where you're saying the Attorney General is having to step in here and we're happy to do it. But guess what? This is your job that we're doing right now. And we're going to do it for you. But we shouldn't have to keep doing it for you. You need to enforce the law. But we're not going to let these violent crimes go unanswered. But let me take a step back into sort of a more strategic approach, right? We know this is happening. We know it's going to continue to happen. And so there needs to be a longer term approach, somebody in the AG's office that's looking at a proactive, longer term approach to what's happening here. And there have been efforts all across the country, Los Angeles, San Francisco, or 2 of the big Portland, some of the biggest examples, where there's been a lot of effort to quote unquote reform our criminal justice system, but in a way that law-abiding citizens would not appreciate, right?
Absolutely.
There's a fellow named John Arnold. You can look him up, Arnold, right? He's trying to be the next George Soros, right? He's putting billions of dollars. There's been some articles that have come out about it, about how he's trying to, again, reform criminal justice, but not in a way that's helpful to the people. And he has a foundation. It's called the Arnold Foundation. And there were lobbyists up at the legislature that were lobbying on behalf of his foundation to the state legislature to try and implement some of the things he was doing. And one of those lobbyists is in this race, in this Attorney General's race, that lobbied on behalf of the Arnold Foundation. And what I'm saying is you need to look at what's happening in the larger context of things, what George Soros and John Arnold are trying to pull off in LA and San Francisco. And you need to be prepared to combat it because it's coming, right? They want to implement the same things here in a Sim Gill type of approach, right? And overrun the criminal justice system and not prosecute crime and let these things go free and allow illegals to come in and allow homeless camps to get set up, right? And do it all in the name of, of tolerance and helping people, right? And if there's an attorney general that can see it coming and stop it before it starts, you're going to avoid a lot of these problems. You got to take on the problems that are here now, but you have to know it's coming and be proactive in stopping those reforms when they're on their way. And getting these liberal prosecutors, liberal DAs put in that don't want to prosecute crime. And I've said this before. I've said it to the counties. I think I've said it just earlier in this interview. If you stop it once and you really stop it, then people are going to know, oh, okay, this isn't going to fly here, right? If there's something happening in the counties that nobody's taking a look at, and you go in and you stop it in one, all the other counties are going to see, okay, we're not going to get away with that anymore, right? Or if a prosecutor, a liberal DA isn't going to prosecute crime, and a state attorney general steps in and says, yes, we are, and we're going to hold people accountable, then you're going to focus some attention on that problem, and you're going to be able to get the public behind you, which means you're going to be able to get the legislature behind you, which means you're going to be able to dedicate the resources you need to give the local, the city and county police officers, along with the county sheriffs, the resources they need. And they're going to know, okay, the attorney general's got my back. If I go into a dangerous situation and I arrest these criminals, right, and I put myself in danger, I'm going to have an AG that's actually going to prosecute this crime and not waste all the effort that I put in doing my job to try and stop crime. Not
to mention when they just release them back onto the street, it emboldens them.
Absolutely.
They actually increase their violent behavior because they've been let go. I've got a big question about that, and I don't know if you even have the answer to this, but the Soros Foundation has done irreparable damage to the coast of this country.
Yeah. And
it sounds like this
to many other countries too.
Purple-haired Arnold, I don't know what we call him, giant one-eyed monster, whatever. He's set to take over for that. What are some things that an AG could do to not just protect his state, but let's face it, we've got to look at protecting bigger than just the state, because the state of Georgia is getting bleed over from New York, and now they've got a young nursing student that the guy crushed her head. You've got an infant in
illegals
where is it? And these are products of other states that are bleeding over into them. How do we deal with that on a bigger level? I mean, is it time for torches and pitchforks? I guess that's what I'm asking.
No, it's not time for torches and pitchforks yet, as long as you have an attorney general that'll stand up and fight these fights for you. And let me give you an example. Look at what Governor Abbott is doing in Texas, right? He's securing the border. He's putting up the barbed wire. The federal government says you have to take it down. They say, no, we're going to keep putting it up, right? They're fighting that fight, and they're stepping outside.
The judge just ruled against him, though, that he's not allowed to have, his officers are not allowed to ask if someone is legal or illegal. A judge just ruled against the governor and that legislation. The legislators put out a law that if someone is stopped by police and found to be illegal, they will be sent to ICE and removed from the country. And a Reagan-appointed judge just stopped that.
Well, and I have other concerns about that. I applaud him on shipping the illegals to the sanctuary cities and stressing their financial wallets, but the illegals still get deeper in, and those sanctuary cities are going to hit a census in 3 years, and they're going to get another congressional vote out of it.
Right. Well,
so in the end, we're going to lose.
Well, not if 2024 turns out to be a better election than 2020, right? I mean, if we get a Trump presidency again, and I fully endorsed the president back on January 16th, and he carries through, which I think he will, with his promise of mass deportations, right? That has to happen, and it has to happen now. To your point, Jared, that these censuses are going to happen, right? And we can't allow them to happen when you've got states that are allowing non-immigrants not only to vote but to be on voting boards, right?
Or in law enforcement.
Exactly.
Oxymoron.
But so it takes a proactive approach to say, look, this has never been done before, what I want to propose kind of thing, right? Like it's never happened that you had the Texas governor setting up barbed wire down on the border, but he did it, right? And if you say, look, we're going to implement some things in this state, it's never been done before, but we're going to try it because guess what? Utah's a major corridor up I-15, and down 15 of drug trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking. So that issue affects us. We have standing to go in and take care of this issue. So we can go in, I can partner with the county sheriffs. We can say we have all the power and constitutional authority we need to protect our people. And we can start to implement some measures to get these illegal immigrants out of our state. And then we will get sued. And then we will defend ourselves against those lawsuits. And we might win some and we might lose some, but we got to fight the fight.
Right.
And nobody's fighting the fight. It's just like, well, hands thrown in the air. There's nothing we can do. It's a federal issue. No, it's not. It's a state, city, local, community issue, and people are dying, and they're dying of fentanyl overdoses, and children are getting trafficked, and there's being drug trafficking, and it has to be fought here. And maybe we lose some of those battles in the trenches and the lawsuits in the federal government. You get liberal judges or even Reagan appointees that say, nope, sorry, you can't do that. But we're going to fight the fight. And there's going to be something along the way that we win, and we're going to build on those wins, and we're going to keep fighting those fights. So the people of Utah know, regardless of what happens, there's an AG that's going to fight this for them and not just say, well, I don't know, it's a federal issue. That's not okay.
Well, and I think a lot of you in the race, I know pretty much everyone in the race, and we've had a couple. Well, we've had one on, but I've known Derek Brown a long time, and I really highly respect him. He was an excellent GOP chair, and was able to get really good communication between people who were at each other's throats. And I get that you do need to have. You need to have a strong presence where people can trust you, businesses can trust you. And I am a law enforcement kid. I grew up in law enforcement. My father, my brother, I have strong ties to law enforcement. So that's my family that shows up in the city when it's burning down. It's my family that takes hits to the face or runs the risk of danger. So it's my family. When Sim Gill is trying to prosecute a whole department for misdeeds, and then during an election year, and he has all the charges filed, and 2 days after he's elected, he drops all the charges because he had no case. That is, to me, that helps turn people against law enforcement. And we need a bond. Utah is a pretty great state to be a police officer or a deputy in. I think we've got great police officers and everything else, but I'm seeing the tide turning, and I want to make sure that anyone who wins this seat will have law enforcement's back as much as they have business and citizens. So I'd like to see a good working relationship with all, because you can't be friends with everyone all the time, of course. No. But with, I have a big problem with, asset forfeiture. I have a big problem when somebody can search another person's car, and if they've got thousands of dollars in that car, the departments can take it. I have a big problem with that. I'm ready. I think Utah should put an end to that. I know we're a high drug traffic area, and I-80, I-15, all Parleys, all that way is all high traffic for drugs. But I want an AG who's going to go, wait a minute, your civil rights are being violated, and they took $18,000 from you. Since when is it illegal to carry a large amount of cash with you? Right. You have no crime. You've been charged with no crime, yet a department takes it. And that's going on all around the country. And to me, that's blatant violation of my civil rights. And if it's your job to bring a case against me, and if I happen to have $25,000 on me in cash because I'm headed to Wyoming to buy a classic car, why do I have to defend myself to you and you get to take it? This is a problem. And Utah's been guilty of it. I hate that. And I know it's beneficial to law enforcement because they get to keep that money or they share it with the federal government. But then there's no crime. We've got so many problems. Criminal justice reform. We should start looking in jails and looking at these ridiculous sentences against a Black person versus a white person for the exact same crime. Yeah. And that's where I want reform to start. Let's see who's in there for marijuana crimes. Let's see who's in there for, who's in there who's mentally ill. Look at the mental illness problem across the nation right now. And nobody is saying that's the problem we need to tackle. because I know our AG's office and with work with legislators made the mental health 3-digit number so that people can call if they're having a mental health crisis. Instead of 911, they call this. Our AG's office did that with our local legislature and with Chris Stewart, our congressman, our district. That's the type of stuff I want to see coming out of the AG's office. I want people to get the help, not get thrown in prison, not get thrown into a homeless camp and said, hey, good luck. I want something where even drug addicts who are not violent have something. And I want the AG's office leading that.
Right.
And not to get famous necessarily, but to set precedent on human life and how valuable it is. Yeah. Regardless if a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 40-year-old, people struggle, and they're struggling, and our state we need to be leaders in this.
Yeah. Holly, you've touched on a lot of really great issues right there. And I want to hit on a couple of the things you said, but I want to preface it with a story that I think can kind of encapsulate what you're talking about. You talk about recourse, like what is the people's recourse when they feel like their assets have been, taken by police, or, the state comes for them, right? Like, why isn't the Attorney General leading on that? The first case I ever took to trial, ever, I was a young attorney, first-year attorney, and I had a friend come to me. He was an ecclesiastical leader, and he said, hey, I have a couple I need you to talk to, and they don't have any money, but they need your help. And they told me the story. The state had showed up at their house at gunpoint and extracted their 2 daughters, 9 and 11, from the house, from the parents, and took them and put them in foster care. And the state was trying to terminate the parental rights of those parents based off of an accusation by a disgruntled former employee. So I looked at the case. I said, okay, I'm going to take this case. And I was going to represent the parents. I was going to protect their parental rights, and I was going to get those kids back. And I showed up to the very first hearing. And again, I'm just a first-year lawyer, right? A little wet behind the ears. I'm very probably overconfident, but I show up at the first hearing, and the state literally tosses this motion to me across the table. It's a 24-page motion for sanctions against me, against the attorney. And what they were trying to do is, it was a brushback pitch, right? They were trying to scare me and get me off this case and say, you don't belong here, kid. So I argued the motion, I won the motion, and we won the hearing, but it took 8 months to get those girls out of that system, get them back with their parents, protect those parental rights. And this may not surprise you, as soon as that family was reunited, they took off. They left that state, never to return.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well,
right?
Isn't there a federal legislation that it's perverse, but states make money when they remove children from parents? So you get a lot of abuses in that. And which honestly,
and foster care systems get money by taking those children.
I don't mean to bring up guillotines every time I do a show.
Oh my gosh, here it is. 3:55, folks. He brought it up at 3:55.
Does this have to do with
purple
hair and guillotines? I know that's kind of an issue for you.
Once you approach a parasitic, abusive government, what's the other answer?
And that's my point, is there's no recourse. Your recourse is one of two things. You go and hire an attorney, and maybe you can afford them and maybe you can't, or you roll over and you take it from the state. And here's my larger point. If you haven't fought the state, right? We have other attorneys in this race that have done really excellent legal work, litigation, right? There's other people in this race that have never practiced litigation, but some that have. But that's fighting for the state. Right? You take the state's agenda and you're going to implement the state's agenda. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of respect for people that work for the state their whole careers. But if you've never fought the state, okay, you don't understand the vast resources and power and presumption that the judges give the state. Right. You are uphill from day one. And if you go
bankrupt trying to defend yourself by design.
If you've never been in that position, you don't understand what it's like to fight the state. And that's the mindset that I want to bring to the Attorney General's office. Like, the Attorney General needs to be an advocate for the people, even against the power of his or her own office, to give them recourse, right? And that's what I'm talking about, setting up divisions where people can come and say, $25,000 was taken from my car, and not have it go through a bureaucracy of 5 months before anybody even looks at it. It gets handled, right? And there's attorneys that get assigned to cases, and because they have a partnership with local law enforcement, they can say, hey, we understood this happened. Can we get detail? Like, can we just handle it? It shouldn't be 5 months. It should be 5 hours, right? But that requires an ongoing proactive approach to build relationships with these police departments at the city and the county level. It requires trust with the people to say, no, I'm going to make good on that promise. And I'm going to fight for your rights ahead of the agenda of whatever regulatory agency we're talking about. And to your point, Jared, I spoke with, he's a former member of the legislature, and he's an attorney, and he's been working with DCFS. He wrote laws relating to DCFS, but also fighting against DCFS his entire career. He told me there are 700 cases a year in which parental rights are terminated. Now, you can imagine that some percentage of those are probably warranted, right? There is such a thing as really bad parents, right?
Abusers, drug addicts, all that. Yeah.
700, right?
Yeah.
Where's that money going? That's
if it
what
was
I'm talking
700,
about.
you would
Auditing the system, right? Where is the money going? Who's benefiting from that? What parts of it work and what parts of it don't? What recourse do parents have? And unless an attorney general is willing to stand up and say, look, I'm 47 years old, and my entire life I've never heard or seen of an audit of DCFS ever.
And foster care systems foster parents get paid quite a bit of money per kid, and a lot of them will take on 12 kids.
Well, I don't want to.
Is that good care for a kid?
I don't want to thank you to the foster parents that do a good job. Right.
I don't want to disabuse the foster system because it's a needed gap. And
to your earlier point, Holly, let's just make sure it works. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm asking.
I've never been part of a private organization that didn't voluntarily audit its books and then share those results with the people that needed to see it, the shareholders, the investors, whatever.
The investors, right. And we are all investors in this state.
But the government doesn't do it. And they won't do it until there's someone who doesn't need to ask permission of legislative leadership or of the governor or of a regulatory agency to run one of these audits. Someone that can just stand up, wake up one morning and being, no, we're going to war, and we're going to make sure we understand whether these regulatory agencies work or not. And the parts that work, awesome. The parts that don't, we're going to fix them. And if someone needs to go to jail, so be it. But somebody's got to stand up and make that fight.
I wish that our federal government leadership was doing the same thing and auditing these big ABC departments. And I've said it on this show a million times, but we need an audit of the FBI. We need an audit of the funds going to Ukraine. We need an audit of the CIA and right now the DOJ.
Audit the Fed, right? We need to. We need to see what's going on.
Did you guys hear the news?
No, tell me.
The United States Marine Corps is the first ABC organization to pass an audit last week. The first in something like 25 years. I want everyone to soak it in. Hoorah, Marines. Good job. All right, go on.
So what I'm saying is I would love to see that at a federal level, but I especially would like to see a bulldog on the state level for those citizens that feel like, hey, I can't afford to fight the state. I can't afford to go bankrupt to get my life savings back that I drove across state lines with, or I can't afford this. It would be nice if there was some sort of department. You've got incredible attorneys in that office. And Sean's got amazing attorneys and investigators in that office. And I think that they work tirelessly on so much. So this would be a money issue.
Let me say this to that point, Holly. I started this interview by telling you about that idea that was floated last September about making the Attorney General.
You know who made that idea, by the way? Because I've heard that's only a rumor. Because he talks about the Attorney General and the state school board, which had my head about spinning around.
So there was an article. There were articles in the Deseret News and KSL. I can't remember if the Trib had one, but it was Senator Mike McKell who floated the idea, and they actually had quotes from the governor in the article supporting the idea initially, and he sort of couched it in, I'd like to learn more, but I support the idea. And so there's articles September, October of last year. But here's the point I want to make about that. It wasn't just an attempt to move the AG under the governor, right? There was a concerted effort, in my opinion, to demonize the actual office itself, right? Say like, look, there's corruption top to bottom in that office. You just got to go in and clean house. And it almost made my head explode. I know a lot of the attorneys in that office. Those are good attorneys. Those are people that could be making any salary they wanted at any law firm across the country. And they chose to take that job and fight for justice, right? And so part of what I'm going to say is like, yes, the Attorney General needs to stand up for individual rights, but also for his office. Those are good attorneys and they're doing their best, right? and we can give them tools and incentives to help them do a little better. We can all do a little better, right? But what I won't stand for is them saying, well, we got to, we're going to have to clean house over there. We're going to have to fire all 300 attorneys and get new attorneys.
Well,
No, those are good people.
What you're saying is right. You've got to be prepared to fight the state who you've got legislators and you've got the pulpit of the governor's office. And if they're literally telling all of Utah that your office is corrupt and your AG is corrupt, and the AG, how do you defend yourself when there's not a hearing where you get to face your accusers? There's not, it's only this rumor mill that can be misinformation. There could be a little here, a little there, but there's no way to actually to draw it all out. And I want an AG that's going to stand up and go, this is crap.
Yeah.
Bravo Sierra here. I have not done these things, and my office has not done these things, and we're ready to go to war to defend this office. And I mean, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of it is getting used against them, and they don't have a way to fight back.
Right. And they don't have a way to fight back because the attorneys in that office, the staff in that office, it's a 600 person office, right? 300 of which are attorneys, right? It's not their job to be the public spokesman. It's their job to go protect, civil rights, individual rights, fight for fight for what's right. It's the attorney general's job to go fight for them and for the people of Utah and stand up. I'll say it again. There's, short of the governor, there's no other state constitutional level authority that has more of a bully pulpit than the attorney general. And the attorney general should be partnering with the legislature in ways that benefit the people and giving credit to the legislature and standing up for his attorneys and local law enforcement and county law enforcement and state law enforcement when they're doing the right thing and saying, this is what we need to do in Utah. And I want to get to an earlier point that you made, Holly, about it'd be great if the federal government did that. It's always been the case when something works in a state, other states pick it up. Eventually the federal government pick it up. Look at what we could do with election integrity. When the first thing I want to do on day one is start to conduct a full statewide transparent audit of Utah's electoral system, right? I want to make sure it works. We've heard that it's safe and secure. Let's prove it, right? I hope that when we get all the way done that we have proof that the election was safe and secure. That'd be great. But to hold the audit and to actually provide proof to people that it worked and maybe show some things that didn't work, that's where you can go to a legislature and say, hey, I get it. You guys like doing it this way, but here's a mountain of evidence that shows that this isn't the best way to do it. This is the right way to do it. And if you do that, other states will see it.
On that note, we didn't have standing over the 2020 thing. Remember, judge kicked it out, even though the presidential election affects all the states. We didn't have standing, but we have a lot of people.
The general has the full constitutional authority to run an investigation of our state electoral system.
Absolutely, but a lot of people will follow you on this because. Just like that idea of turning over the AG's office and being under appointment and all, and the school board, there's a lot of people floating an idea that no, we need to have a Secretary of State who's going to run the elections, because why would you want? And this is nothing against Lieutenant Governor's office, nothing, but the Lieutenant Governor's office runs elections, and perception, they also run their own. A lot of people would like an outside source that's running the elections and that may not necessarily benefit or, be burdened by the results. Right. So I don't know what that looks like other than an attorney general who maybe does audit our elections.
Right. And it's not just the election itself, but it's everything that happens in between the election and the next election, right? How are we cleaning voter rolls, right? How are we preparing for the next election? All of those things, right? It's a longer process. It's not a 6 month process. That's a longer process. But my larger point is, if we do it and we do it right, which is what we do in Utah, other states will say, well, Utah audited their election. Why can't we audit ours, right? Let's see how they did it. Let's implement some of those same things. Maybe they do some things in their audit that's better than ours. I don't know. And it spreads, right? Eventually you gain the momentum to say, every state is doing it, or at least all the red states are doing it. Let's have one in the federal government. That's how ideas in this laboratory of a democracy that we have actually take hold and get spread across the country. But there has to be somebody who stands up and does it first, right?
Well, I'm going to ask you the question anyone else is going to ask you, and how do you pay for it?
Well, here's the thing. If the attorney general came out and said, we're going to audit the election, you can go to the legislature and get an appropriation for it. That might be hard, right? There's going to be some political differences, I think, within the party. And I think there's going to be some people in power who don't want that to happen. But an attorney general can use outside resources to pay for something like that. And if a state attorney general said, we're going to run an audit of the election, would anybody like to help fund it? 48 hours. You could fund something like that so fast, but be transparent with it. Fully transparent with the sources of the money, the vendors we're going to use, the different, third-party sources that we're going to use to audit this election and audit every part of it, right? The ballots, the mail-in ballots, the machines, doing interviews with county clerks, doing interviews with their employees, taking a full top-to-bottom approach and being transparent with all of it so that the people can finally see, yeah, this part works, that part not so much.
That's a good point. I know that can get sticky when you start bringing in funds from outside sources, but full transparency is the key to have it not be sticky. You can see where the money's been spent. Hell, you could do most of it with volunteers and people. I know so many people
that would bang down my door, that would knock down my door to get involved in this.
I got a question. If we're going to do that, what can I start selling so I can get that good government markup?
What are you talking about?
Because I'll sell stuff to this audit. No, I'm just kidding. Like a $5,000 hammer.
Guillotines, man. You're going into guillotine business.
It sells itself, right?
It's just crazy.
It does or else.
Here's the hard part we're at is we do an audit here. Like my county, I trust my county. Yeah. I trust my county clerk 1,000%. I think she would be one of those that ISIS would have her in a dark room with a lamp on her and they're working her toes over with a hammer and she wouldn't let anything out. She's just that hardy.
I love it.
But she's also highly transparent and into election security 1,000%.
How is it, and then you go into the rest of the state and then you go beyond the state. And that's where you start losing me. And then, you've got Colorado, Maine, and
we just got to protect our own at this point and try to get other states to do the same, to follow suit. But blue states are not going to follow suit.
No, they're not. And that judge in Illinois that just took Trump off the ballot, she's a traffic cop. She has literally no jurisdiction to do that. She's not a federal judge. She's not even she doesn't rise above that level. She could make a decision like that, but she does it. And of course, the news runs with it. Oh, he's off the ballot. And nobody, and again, it's Illinois, right? So you might kind of expect it from them, right? But there are attorney generals, right? There are attorney generals that are Republican in different states that have to deal with a Democrat governor or a Democrat controlled legislature, and they need to be proactive in their approach. We don't suffer from that here. We have, we can get into that, but they have to be proactive to say, look, the law is this, and we're not taking Trump off the ballot. I don't care what any of you say, right?
Well, think of the litigation. What state can afford to litigate against this? Because this is going to go straight to the Supreme Court because of the timing alone. And then think about the rioting that will happen in Illinois. We're talking rural Illinois because it's not all Illinois. It's like Chicago. And Chicago's Trump country compared to what that Jesse Samoy said.
Think of the rioting that's going to happen during the cold weather vortex out front of Subway.
It's all by design, right? It's all by design,
Absolutely.
Right? The rioting, the unrest, right? Getting us to fight with each other. It's all by design. And they want that to happen across the country. And they want us to get mad about the fact that this Illinois judge took Trump off the ballot. It's completely insane, right? And yes, it's going to go all the way to Supreme Court. In my opinion, the Supreme Court, and I think they might actually get one of the liberal justices to side with him on this, given her past history on election issues. I think the Supreme Court's going to knock it down. But you've already got places like Colorado that have printed the ballots, right? Like it's already too late there. Right. Mm-hmm. And they want to just frustrate us. They want to make us angry. Right. And so,
they want to steal the election.
Right.
And they're not even shy about how they're doing it. We're going to steal the election. And yet even justices, like you said, ask the question. He's never been charged with a crime. He's never been charged with insurrection. How are you using this to take him off a ballot when he's never been charged? Is there a trial and none of us heard about? I mean, even liberal judges worth their weight in salt. They better vote the right way, because what we've seen when people have lost their minds, we've seen the left throw their hissy fit. There's a silent majority of people out there who have kept their cool and are going to get so livid because now you're telling me, now you're taking my choice away.
Right.
He's never committed a crime that has been charged with. And you're trying everything to get him charged.
Right. Right. Criminally.
It's
Yeah.
more like
Absolutely.
civil. Now they're calling him a rapist.
Well, I mean,
Because a judge said a civil matter for a victim that can't remember what year it happened.
No,
She doesn't
it's-
know exactly what happened. She's creepy as all hell. She's got a terrible track record.
it's better than
But
that. They
just
give
like-
the
just a
restitution charge prior to the conviction.
That's right. That's right.
And now it's $400 million, trying to bankrupt him out of running. And the American people see this. And anyone who says this is not absolute election interference is a liar.
And let me
They're
ask you
lying
this.
to themselves.
If they can do this to a former president who happens to have that much money, what can they do to you if you don't have a state attorney general that's going to stand up and fight for you?
They're doing it to people every single
That's right.
day.
That's
Yeah.
right. And unless we have a state attorney general that's going to stand up and say, not in this state, no, and smack it down wherever it rears its ugly head, that's what you're going to find, because they're trying to take over in all the states. And it's not that they're just going after Trump and trying to keep him off the ballot. This is a message. What they did to General Flynn, what they did to Rudy Giuliani, right? It's a message. It's the same message that those prosecutors tried to send to me when they tried to sanction me for getting involved in that case to protect those children. Don't mess with us. You don't belong here. This is our game. Get out. And if
Well,
you're
not to
you don't
to
have the ability
bolster-
to fight that.
to bolster that, but not to throw a wrench in it. Remember the charge? What was it? Was it Massachusetts gave Alex Jones,
Oh yeah.
where it looks like the person writing the number had a stroke and went into reset and just putting commas and zeros. It was like the GDP of Italy.
Right. Right.
And he got fined. That was his fine. It was, you get fined a
That's
kabillion,
illegal.
gajillion dollars.
That's actually illegal.
And you're
you
like-
can't be
Yeah.
can't be fined more than what a crime can be. I mean, here's the thing. I feel like Sean Reyes has been a pillar of support for Donald Trump. And I know that Trump has backed him in the child trafficking thing. And most people in this country would have no idea how severe child trafficking is in this country until Sean Reyes brought it to everyone's attention, brought it to Trump. I mean, and we got to see a ball rolling. I think you're going to be filling some really big shoes.
Right.
And I mean, I get that the states all have to get on board, but at this point, I just want red states. I mean, let's start with red states who go, okay, here's the deal. This is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Because once the citizens of blue states see that, wait a second, I'm just as important as the guy next to me, the girl next to me. I deserve a fair trial as much as a ex-president deserves a fair trial.
Right.
And this is abuse. And this happened to so-and-so that I know. Like, these people have experienced this. The DOJ or our justice system has affected every family somehow in this country. And
Right.
after seeing the January 6th situation and talk about evidence not getting turned over to the defense and plea bargains made without the defense attorneys even knowing what they don't have or what they do have. This is mock of justice. This is mocking it. And they're selling this huge lie. And now I think more Americans are saying, wait a second. They just pulled all this over. These people have been under the jail in DC. They may never see the light of day.
Yeah.
And yet, what crime did they commit? Not one person has been charged with insurrection. Not one. Let alone, I mean, if they were, it was the worst insurrection in the history of history.
Right.
An
Right.
unarmed insurrection.
Mhm.
This is such a serious job you want to get.
Yeah.
This is so much trust needed by the American people or just the Utah people for your job.
Right.
But we're battling a federal government here that at every turn
Right.
is totally making justice look like a joke.
Right. And there's so many ways that a state attorney general can be proactive in these cases, right? But also make sure that the people know, I've got you, right? You have a resource, you have someone who will go to war if they need to with the entire weight of the state attorney general's office to protect you. Okay. Let me give you an example. There's a current senator from Missouri. His name's Eric Schmidt. He was the attorney general of Missouri. And when Biden passed his unlawful student loan forgiveness plan, Eric Schmidt said, no, you don't. And he sued on behalf of Missouri. He took it all the way to the Supreme Court and he argued it himself and he won. Okay. But that didn't just affect Missouri. That affected all of us, right? Now, the Biden administration went around the ruling, did something that I still think is unconstitutional, and they still started doing it. He fought that fight and he won. And you have attorney generals all across the country that are doing that. You've got the attorney general in Tennessee, in Florida, in Texas, right? Fighting these fights, filing lawsuits against big tech, big pharma, against the federal government, right? And those attorney generals have an outsized impact. They can affect national policy by fighting these policies in the federal courts, right? It doesn't just have to be Utah. You got to protect your house first, but you can have an outsized impact on federal policy if you're willing to take on those fights.
Well, and you're right. That's the thing is what I mean, Sean Reyes took on the fight with trafficking and it changed policy nationwide. So you're absolutely right.
Right. And he pushed back on ESG. That changed the fight as well. Right. Give him full credit for that.
Well, and Marlo Oaks, no one knew Marlo Oaks. And he becomes treasurer before we know it. ESG is in everybody's vernacular. Now they all know what they're talking about and they're seeing DEI and how it works and how, I mean, our country is in a very, very bad way. Yeah. And I feel like as a Republican, I want to see our platform come out in every single elected's leadership, example, everything. I'm tired of being the party that compromises all the time, plays defense all the time. I want to be the party that is leading by example and fighting for the people, all the people, not just our side, but the civil rights of every person. Mm-hmm. And so it's getting to a point where, I think a lot of people in our county are we're ready for that upset. We're ready for someone who's going to stand up and say no more. Yeah. We're done with going the norm. And our AG's office has been pretty forthcoming as far as fighting. Yeah. And so I'm hopeful that whoever gets in that seat will have that vigor and especially that ability.
And it's important to look through the candidates and see which one you think can really bring, to your point, that vigor and that isn't conflicted out, right? For example, the state's suing Facebook, right, for the damage. And this is an interesting point that I want to highlight. We know that Facebook executives knew that their algorithm was addictive and hurting kids. We know that they knew that and that they went ahead anyway. And the reason we know that is because other state attorneys general fought those fights, got those disclosures, and now it's out and open in the public. And because of the fight that was fought on that battlefield, now we can take that and go sue Facebook and say, okay, we want damages, right? But you can't have someone as the attorney general who's conflicted out, right? I don't have any problem with people deciding they want to be a lobbyist. If that's your career of choice, that's fine. But I don't think a lobbyist who has lobbied for Facebook should be the next attorney general. I think that creates a conflict. Again, people can choose whatever career path they want, but you have to understand, are there conflicts that are going to compromise the ability of the next attorney general to fight the fight on any battlefield that they need to fight it? I've never been a lobbyist. My background, like I said, I'm a litigator, I'm a leader, I've been a CEO, but I've fought multi-million-dollar lawsuits. I've filed briefs in front of the Supreme Court. But at the same time, I have the ability to say, okay, I'm going to take that Facebook case and I'm going to win it, right? We're going to take all of these cases, the 60 cases that are currently pending that involve rural Utah, grazing rights, trail, access to trails, all those things, and we're going to win them, right? And you have to have somebody that's going to be willing to come in, but also do the strategy of it, the long-term planning of it, the proactivity of it, and say, we're going to do it in a way that we win, not just today, but in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And that's what I think.
The federal Supreme Court case has been paid for. I mean, the money's been put aside to sue over our federal lands, and nobody is doing it. So I really appreciate that. I mean, you got a person on here who wants one of your signs already. Hey, Mom, stop it. I'm neutral.
Yeah, send a couple signs out this way.
Delegate. Well, and right now you have decided to go convention only. You're not gathering signatures. Now, why this is so great to me is because here's a grassroots candidate who sees something that needs fixing and he thinks he can do the best job. Just like we talked about in the beginning of the show before our internet outage, that when a candidate like that, he may not have $1 million in the coffers to go run a campaign or $500,000 to go gather signatures. So what you're doing is you're going through convention and you're going to trust the delegates to choose you. Right. And get you on the ballot. That means that a regular Joe Schmo like you and I has that fair advantage to go talk to 4,000 people instead of 3 million.
Mhm.
And so anybody that is liking what you hear, this candidate we've got his website that I put in the show notes, and we'll do it again. But go to Trent Christensen. Is it number 4 AG?
Nope, it's just
Or
TrentChristensen.com.
Yeah, TrentChristensen.com. The 4AG is on your socials, like
on your social media,
Twitter and
but go offer to donate.
Rumble and Grinder.
I'm sure he has a donate button. I'm sure he needs volunteers. And if
glad
you're
Holly
running
caught
for state, if you're running for state delegate, you will have the opportunity to choose the AG through convention. And so again, go to your caucus and talk about this candidate if it's someone you like with your delegates, if you don't want to be a delegate yourself, and just find out if you've got a delegate that is willing to get to know this candidate, who maybe already knows, whatever. But right now is the chance, and he's laying everything on the line with you, the voters, and saying, hey, pick me, choose me, get me through to convention, and I'll be on the ballot, and we'll go from there. So I respect that a lot. It's, in our state, SB 54, we can't get it recalled for some reason. And we're a private party, the Republican Party, we're private. But legislators put up SB 54 under the guise that caucus isn't really hear your voice, and signature path is the way to go. And we took it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
And yet we still have this dual path. When if these legislators really believed that that we're a private party and that our delegates are actually valuable, they would vote to get rid of SB 54 right at the Capitol. And they haven't. They like the dual path. They'll pay for signatures and get on the ballot no matter what. So I find it extremely, extremely great and trusting, and it's going to be hard. I mean, you've got 4,000 people to campaign to.
That's right.
But at least it's not 3 million right out of the gate.
But here's the beauty of it that I love. This is the part that I love, talking to people, understanding the issues, understanding what's happening to you in your local areas, right? I mentioned earlier about law enforcement, that the county sheriffs are the only members of law enforcement anywhere in the state that are popularly elected, right? I mentioned that there was an effort to try and take the voice of the AG away from the people and make that an appointment, right? Everything about what I'm trying to do as Attorney General is to give the voice to the people. And that's what I want to do at convention. I want to know if the voice of the people picks me, I will fight. But if they don't pick me, I will back whoever they want, right? Because it's the voice of the people that matters. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. It's the people, right? And that's why convention to me is so important. I've been a state delegate 5 times. I've been a county delegate twice. I actually had the honor of serving as an elector in 2020. I was one of only 6 people in this state who was a member of the Electoral College that cast a legally binding vote that gets recorded in the Library of Congress for Donald Trump. That was an honor.
Okay, hold
I
on.
was a national delegate
Hold
myself.
on. Let's tell me about this Electoral College. I want some further education. How did you become a part of it? What was the process? Can you lay it out for me? Did you see the rest of the Sabruder film? Go on, lay it out. I'm waiting.
So
Are you on drugs?
I'll give you a larger. So the Electoral College is how the president gets elected.
Yes. How do you become a part of it?
Elected, right? There's electors, and every state has electors, and it matches the number of their federal delegation. So Utah has 6, right? 4 congressmen and 2 senators. And it's the same process actually as becoming a state delegate. At state convention, I put my name in as an elector. I was able to give a speech to say, I want to be an elector. Here's why it matters. I'm going to vote for Trump. I believe in what his policies are, and I want him to get reelected. And the voice of the people chose me, right? Now, the Republicans pick their electors. The Democrats pick their electors. And whoever wins the state, Trump won the state, so we went with the Republican won the state, so we went with the Republican electors. Had the Democrat won the state, those electors would have gone up to the Capitol and signed their name and voted for their candidate, right? So every party
has the brimstone across the valley. I get it. So no, that's interesting. I've often wondered, because I've heard stories, but I've often wondered how the Electoral College, how they got there. And you've heard stories and not how theoretically, but how the individuals became a member of the Electoral College. I've heard it, and I know. I remember I watched like a interview with one on CBS or NBC or whatever, one of those, and they talked about the kid. He did it. His father did it before him. The kid was in college. He was like a junior in college, and he was already doing it.
That's awesome.
But
yeah,
no, that's interesting. I would like to do a show just on that.
Yeah. And some states do it differently. It's based on state law, right? And that's the beauty of our system. Every state can do it however they want. In some states, the electors are appointed within the party, right? But not in Utah. In Utah, again, and Holly, to your point, it's the voice of the people at convention that matters, right? That's how the electors get chosen. That's how, candidates get put on the primary ballot, right? Other states have these jungle primaries where you put 17 people on the ballot, and the electorate, the electorate at large is supposed to know who of these 17 people am I supposed to vote for, right? And
right. In our state system, they let you actually sit in front of someone, look them in the eye, ask them hard questions,
right,
and get a feel, and then make a judgment. I think that there are people who have made, the Count My Vote campaign that actually got us SB 54 there was an agenda attached there, I believe, and it turned campaigns into, you had to have money to be anything,
right?
And to me, that's sad. No,
it as I understand the history of it, it came to be after Mike Lee beat Bob Bennett at convention. If you look at the history of it, Bob Bennett was a very senior senator, right? And Mike went through the convention process, got his delegates elected, and completely surprised Bennett in election.
And people like me knocked on doors for Mike Lee because we believed in him.
And it was a political earthquake, right? That somebody who, it was the first office Mike ever ran for. And God bless him, he went straight to the Senate, right? And that's awesome. But he did it through the voice of the people. But then you have these interests that are like, well, wait a second, Bob Bennett was our guy, right? And they didn't want that. And so they created a second way for people to go through, not necessarily going by the voice of the people, so that you wouldn't have those kind of upsets in the future. And that's how I understand the history of it. Somebody may disagree or tell me I've got my facts wrong, but to your point, it's to help, it's to give the voice to the people, right? And people will say, well, if you go through convention, only the hard right wingers will vote for you. No, the people that took the time to go to caucus and asked their neighbors, like I'm looking out the window at all these houses, my neighbors, they would be the ones voting for me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to run for state delegate, and I'm going to say to them, guys, you know me. We've lived next to each other. Our kids play together. You know me. I want to represent you. How can you do better than that? And I'm going to return and report. I'm going to come back and say, yeah, this is who I voted for, and this is what happened. That's the voice of the people.
Here's the thing, that return and report is so key. And I've been a state delegate for years, and I ran as a national delegate, and I was so lucky because I was one of two in my county, and the other one was Chris Stewart. So it was like amazing. And then 2020, we don't get to go to,
right.
And that sucks. But the return and report. So what does the state do? Is they make caucus now, because everybody in Count My Vote said caucus is hard to attend. People working can't get there. So what does the state do? Okay, pre-register. Oh, you can't be there? Then register absentee. We're going to put all of this data online. It's going to be easy. Now, I don't want to discount the people who actually go out and get signatures themselves.
Sure.
Because I would hate to say that person, like some of our county people have to get 300 signatures, and they go to every single person. I don't want to discount the person that says, okay, I trust you to be my guy. I'm going to sign my name. You can't sign any other petitions after that, but you're my guy. And I don't have to go to my caucus. But what they're missing is there's 50 to 100,000 signatures needed for like a senatorial race. And it's so high. Maybe it's less. I'm not sure how many it is, but I know that it's $500,000.
And it has to be a certain percentage from every county. And you're right. There's a lot that goes into it.
And they're paying an outside company to come in and go door to door. And half the time, these people can't really answer that many questions about this candidate. They can just read off a flyer of what this candidate stands for. They're not meeting the candidate. Right. They're meeting somebody who's convincing them, just like the Count My Vote campaign. Right. Count my vote? That sounds amazing. Yeah, I'll sign that. Of course I want my vote counted. When in fact, they're saying, you count my vote, but not count my voice. You're not hearing my voice. I'm just signing a piece of paper and saying, yeah, okay, get out of my porch, get off my porch.
Right.
You know, it's
Don't make me
lost.
go get my guillotine. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Leave me alone. Dinner's hot.
I think it's really great that you're putting trust in the delegates. There's nothing worse than to be a county chair and watch a signature candidate get on the ballot automatically. And it didn't matter that I even had a convention because nobody went just convention only. That's how it used to be. So I'm watching all these delegates who spent all this time and energy, and I spent all this time and energy to create events for them, only for their voice to just be irrelevant.
Neglected.
The person bought their way on.
Mhm.
And so that is against what our election process should even be.
And let me tell you how that affects this race. So there's 4 Republican candidates running, and I have a lot of respect for all of them. 3 of us have decided to go convention only. 1 is gathering signatures. And regardless of, let me tell you how it's playing out in the actual running of the race, right? The one that's gathering signatures knows that person's going to be on the primary ballot. So it shifts their focus into the future, right? They're sort of already running a primary race. They're not, necessarily as engaging with the delegates because they don't need the delegates, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other 3, and I'm doing it because I love this. I love this kind of communication, this back and forth, this ideas of, exchanging ideas, and I'm going to delegates and saying, this is why I'm your choice. And maybe you don't vote for me. Okay. Like I had a very nice fellow at the Tooele dinner that came up to me and he said, what's your position on Trump? And I said, I endorse him 100%. And he handed me my flyer back and said, I can't vote for you. And I said, well, that's great. And we actually had a great conversation for a couple minutes. And then he went on to someone else that he'll vote for. And that's fine. Right. But we had that conversation. That's what needs to happen, is people talking to each other. Right. And that's what you get when you go through the delegate process. And those delegates, in an ideal system, and I think the party is doing a lot of good things to make sure this happens. It's the return and report. Those 4,000 delegates will vote and then hopefully go back to their precincts and say, this is who I voted for. This is who won. This is why I voted for Trent over this person or that person. Right. And here's what I think about it. And maybe you care what I think, maybe you don't. But as a delegate, I studied these candidates. I looked them in the eye, right? I know, I got a sense for this person. I asked them these questions and these were their answers, right? And
I always report before convention of who I plan to vote for. And I do this because most people, they seem to trust me when they've elected me, but I give them all the information and then I tell them how I plan to vote. Yeah. And I'm waiting for them to respond. Well, I don't like that. Don't vote that way. And then I'll ask another question. Does everybody else feel this way? Because you will have that one or that too. Mm-hmm. But when it's silent and you've given your report before convention, you can go to convention and feel really good about voting on behalf of your neighbors. Right. And that's what we encourage all the time when we're teaching people how to be delegates. Be committed, get ready for your phone to ring off the hook, answer it, go to these events we plan, talk to these candidates. We try to get you in front of people at least 3 times before convention. Our convention's on April 19th. So put that in your calendar. We always welcome the state candidates. We invite all state delegates, our central committee, and the public to it, along with our county delegates, of course. Yeah. But we give speaking time to every candidate running. Yeah. Our goal is to have an educated populace, which is why Jared and I wanted to do this show, because a better educated voter, regardless of their party, if they know exactly who they're backing and why, they know why they're backing them.
I love that. I don't have to agree with them, but they studied the issue, right? They know, and they can tell me why they're voting for them. It's not just, well, I saw a billboard. No,
that's what human nature is about. And that's why by design, they want us at each other's throats. Yeah. Because it makes us weak. We're stronger when we can argue. Well, we can disagree. We can hold on to our values and our principles, and we can go and vote the way we feel is important. And we can always defend our vote if we have to, but we shouldn't have to. We each know our neighbor has their own issues.
And I love the way you phrased it. I'm representing my neighbors, right? Yeah. People that know you, right? Yeah. They've seen you out mowing your lawn, right? They know your kids. They know that one of my kids is the neighborhood troublemaker, right? Like they know you. And you come back and you say, this is what I did and this is why I did it. That is representative democracy, right? I'll tell you a quick story about caucus if I can. My son was 16 at the time, my oldest, and I wanted him to see this is how it works. That's how I became a state delegate. My dad took me to one of these caucus meetings. Awesome. And I said, I want you to come. I'm going to run for state delegate. And I got to explain to him what that means and everything. And I said, you're going to come and I want you to, and I kept saying, I want you to see how democracy works. So he came with me and I raised my hand. I ran for state delegate and I won. And then they said, okay, who wants to volunteer to run for county delegate? And nobody raised their hand. And he leans in and he goes, come on, Dad, show me how democracy works. So I
Well, I like to say a representative republic. I get so angry at the word democracy because
right, representative republic, right.
And that's exactly what you're doing. You are representing your neighbors in this room who don't have the time nor energy, nor maybe they don't. I tell my husband, this job fills my soul. It gives me, it's passion for me. I love it. I feel like I'm doing something for my fellow man. Well, and the pay is terrible, but it fills my cup. Right. And so with that being something that the people who do this job, I think they feel that same way when they ask to be a delegate, when they run, they're doing it with that in mind, that I absolutely want to represent my neighbors and I want them to trust me when I do. So I'm going to give them all the information I can and I'll go do the dirty work, sit through political meetings all day long.
Right.
Some of us love them.
It's what's infuriating when you hear this argument of, well, if you only allow people to go through convention, you're only going to get the hard right wingers. And it's like, listen, if people are there representing their neighbors, then you're going to get what you get, right? And if you don't like that they're more to the right or the left, then run for state delegate and change it yourself. But don't try to demonize and put a label on someone and make them less than because you put this label on them and say, well, we have to have a different way or it's just going to be the hard right wingers. No, these are people that have gone to represent their neighbors, which means to me they represent the state.
And I think they actually, I think you're right. The people who attend their caucus, they tend to be really well informed on political issues. And so they might be called a hard right winger, but the truth is they're just not eating the BS sandwich every single day. They're looking and researching. And so I hope that anyone electing delegates will actually question them, find out what they think, find out what their core issues are, because you can sniff out a hard right winger just as easy as you can sniff out a left wing Republican, which a lot of people don't want either. They want someone in the middle who's going to get along. But there's a lot of people who are fed up with the norm. They're tired of the norm in government. It's insanity to keep repeating what doesn't work. And we're watching our rights disappear.
Like, I feel disenfranchised. How do I change it? Go be a state delegate. Go be a county delegate, right? That's how you change it. At least
go get your voice in front of these people. And the thing is we've watched freedom after freedom after freedom go, all in the name of security, Homeland Security this, and TSA this. And it's gotten to a point where, our school boards, now we're domestic terrorists because we're standing up to school boards, which we have a meeting next week to go to.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to knock the TSA because for like 15 years I was single and I would take a flight every couple months to get a little action.
You know what? Our kids grew up in a world where they can't even imagine meeting someone at a gate. I grew up meeting people at the gate when they flew in.
Oh, I would meet someone.
Okay. It's not gay.
I get the blue pen and make that squiggle on my own.
Why don't we put the TSA on the border and let them frisk down who's coming from the border, right? And
I'm afraid they would
they're not
miss
going to
it.
bring down any airplanes, right? Like it's just
audit.
ridiculous what we go through. But the illegal immigrants are, please come in. Absolutely. Here's a credit card. Go spend your money.
Failed their audit 90% almost every year.
We could put the border guards on our airports and we'd show up. I'd get a new cell phone, get a credit card.
Right. Thank you for flying Delta. Here's your hotel.
I fly into somewhere, they give me a hotel.
Have you guys seen the latest thing that came out? Where they said that if you go to a flight and you're not 2 hours early to check in, airlines now are giving your flight away to these transports. So your seat's being given away to someone who's not documented so they can get moved to wherever they're going. And one guy called in and he's like, you got to be kidding me. I was an hour early for my flight. I'm sitting there. I go up to get my seat, checked in or whatever. And they told me, oh, sorry, we gave your flight away. To who? And then there's this whole group of people that come in.
Do they pay him for it?
They just bump them. They get a different flight.
Mm.
But that guy's you paid for that flight for that time.
Right.
And that guy just got your free ticket, plus a cell phone, plus the check. I mean,
Right.
American people, even Democrats, aren't sitting back going, yeah, this is fine. Yeah,
Right.
I think this is
I
fine.
wonder if he can come over and stay in my house and pet my dog too.
Hey, guys, if you're paying attention and you have a question for Trent,
Yeah.
call us at 385-899-2134. The number's on the screen. We're going to have to cut him loose pretty soon. So
And
I
we
would-
got to cut our call screener loose in about 30 minutes. Our call
we'll cut Trent at 5. So we've got about 15 minutes. So if you have a question that he can answer for you, you've been a great interview. I mean, you've got more
this
energy.
has been fun.
I appreciate that.
We were in chaos when you jumped on the call just because our internet and stuff.
You rode with it.
But my goodness,
let's
you're
roll.
up
I love it.
ready to go. I'm
Good.
exhausted, and I've
Yeah.
just been sitting here. But if we have anybody that wants to call in, otherwise we're just going to keep asking him more questions. Tell us about your family a little bit more. Your wife is your wife Diana?
So I'm divorced.
Okay.
My 4 kids, 18, 16, 14, and 12. My oldest is about to leave on his mission to Argentina. I'm half Argentine. My mother was she legally immigrated to the United States in 1963.
Wow.
And my dad grew up on a farm in Idaho, right? So it's one of those
Well, tell
stories
me,
where, best of both
How do you
worlds.
feel about Malay?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel about Malay?
The president.
Oh my gosh.
Malay.
I can
Is he
see
not
his
amazing?
speeches on repeat and just like listen to it as I sleep. I just love that stuff, right?
Telling you,
I think Trump called him, he's actual MAGA, make
Right,
dude,
Argentina great again.
he's the real deal. That guy is awesome.
Yeah.
Him and what's the guy in oh heck, I've got him pulled up somewhere. The other guy down there that was just at CPAC.
CPAC, him, yeah, I know who you're
Gosh,
talking
man,
about.
those two guys, South America might be on the rise.
Well, you
So
look
do
at what's happening in Argentina. I mean, inflation through the roof. I mean, they're in trouble, right? And it's the people that finally said enough, right? Look, my political background, my grandfather left Argentina because he refused to endorse Eva Perón and he lost his job. And so my
Your
family
grandpa wasn't a good fascist?
Oh,
Damn.
yeah, it's surprising. He wasn't a Nazi and he wasn't a fascist, so he left, right? They came to America and they were crossing through the Panama Canal the day that Kennedy was shot. And it was broadcast across the ship. And it's the most amazing story because my mom was telling me there was the entire ship was filled with people immigrating to the United States, legally immigrating. And these are people that, again, they're not Americans, but the word hit that Kennedy had been shot. And she said it was devastating across the
I'm
boat.
sure.
People are crying. People are, because this is the last hope they have. And the president of the last hope they have just got shot.
We
And
were
so
the
there was
shiny hope on the hill that they were all
Right.
coming for.
And it's this, I'm going here for freedom. What's happening? Right. And it was terrifying. And thank goodness the country survived. Right. But that was the sentiment at the time is we've got to get to America. That's where we can be free. And that's sort of my political heritage. Right. I come from a father that left everything to come to the United States to live free.
Let's face it, your grandfather or father, they came here to pursue freedom.
Yeah.
And hopefully these immigrants are doing it now because I would like to see freedom-loving people who love the Bill of Rights and things like that. I'd love to see them flock here and bolster that. But I'm afraid a lot of them are coming here and saying, send me to New York, send me to Chicago, send me to Atlanta, send me to all these big cities where these cities have declared that they are willing to bankrupt themselves to push their underclass out into the streets for my well-being so that they can post themselves up on the world stage and say, see, look how wonderful I am and
One
my
came
soy
for
latte is
freedom,
great.
And one came for free stuff.
Right.
And-
Well,
And it's a totally different mentality.
you look at the message that Trump first gave when he first was running, right? He got a lot of pushback on what he said about, these people aren't good people. There's an article that came out today that compares the violent crime rate of Venezuela to the United States as immigration, just as the borders just opened. And it just went like this. Here's Venezuela and the United States. And it just went.
Yep.
They
And that's
opened
getting-
their prisons
Right.
and sent them away.
Right. And when you
Well,
get
that
a
girl-
influx of military age single men that are from China and the Middle East, these aren't people that want to come and pledge allegiance to the flag, right? These are people that are coming to harm us, right? And
That girl in Georgia was killed by a Venezuelan who had been picked up in New York. And when INS tried to execute a deportation, A judge in New York blocked them from that. He got caught again. Something, no, I don't want to say small, but something nonviolent.
Yeah.
They had to cut him loose again, and then he got busted again for domestic violence. So we got 3 tracks in New York. So then he runs to Georgia, moves in with his brother, and him and his brother get busted in Georgia twice, obviously shoplifting and I want to say another car-related thing. They were driving for Uber Eats or whatever. And then, lo and behold, he probably has a couple of beers in him, sees the running park out back, sees a pretty young thing running on it. And the left is trying to kind of blame her that he hit on her and she screamed and made a big deal out of it. So he attacked her because, the left has to stand up for the
Of course it's her fault. Right.
Yeah.
What was she wearing?
He crushed her head. I want everyone to hear this. He crushed her head. Unrecognizable when he was done with it.
Mhm.
Well, this is
and the
disgusting.
left is standing up for him. He should be by now. It's been 4 days. He should be on the end of a rope right now.
That's
My
right.
opinion, we need to start making a point of it. People who go out and mass abuse and make victims out of people, we need to start making a point of it. I hate to say it, but we need to start levying it that the punishment is so brutal. Make it quick, made it brutal, and get it done. You know what? Instead of 10-year jail terms, let's give them 1 year, but let's make it breaking big rocks into little rocks.
Well, isn't that something that if you're not a citizen, then the Constitution of the United States doesn't?
And that's the legal theory.
Thank
Is
you.
why do they get the same rights as a citizen? They don't, right?
Yeah,
They
they're
sue-
literally hunting citizens. We're victims of people, and yet if we were to hurt them, we are under the Constitution, and so we are going to have to go through all this drama. The guy that shot the girl in San Francisco all those years ago, he'd been deported 7 times?
Yeah.
And found not guilty because there's this left-wing ideology that you have to be good to everyone and Trump's bad and this guy's
Yep.
he's a victim of his own country.
He did
then
it on
tell him to
accident.
go fix his own country.
That illegal gun was rolled up in a towel, and when he grabbed the
He
towel, it
found
accidentally went off. Yeah, he found. Wasn't it
We're
a
living in
lost
cartoon world.
law enforcement pistol or a stolen gun?
It's
if I
a
remember.
stolen gun, and the thing is,
Yeah.
he didn't find it; he stole it.
Well, yeah, he
And
stole it
shot into a
or he
crowd.
purchased it. But no, that's where we're staying. And hey, a race to the bottom is still a race.
Oh, you know
We
what?
might win. It's like that old phrase that if a vegan and vegetarian jump off a cliff, who hits the ground first? Doesn't matter.
wins?
We all win.
No, who wins? Who wins the race to the bottom?
We do.
We do. Well, okay, so this is the thing that's bothering me the most is I always ask myself if a group of people were trying to ruin America, what would they do different than what they're doing right now? They're doing.
I mean, they would probably.
Oh, I just lost you. I don't hear you.
Who? Oh, we lost your sound over there. Yeah,
Can you hear us?
he can hear us.
We can't hear you.
Well, anyways, we'll have you reset and jump back in. But I would say if I was trying to destroy a country, I would take over the colleges and make them all dye your
I'm telling
child's hair
What
purple
would you
and
do
green.
different? Because they've already done all that.
I would, yeah.
Trent, go ahead and log out and log back in. Your audio might come back.
Yeah, I would. Those are all the things that I would do exactly this. I would even go so far as to say I would find a controllable, blithering old man and put him in power, put him in charge.
And you would mess with the military to make them no longer a solid group, but they have to be individuals. And then you would make it
Yeah.
just a mess. You would defund it.
All right,
You
Trent,
would-
let's try your sound now.
Let me do this. How about that?
Got
Can you
it.
hear me now? Good.
Yep, we can hear you.
What you
Except
talked
for the
about
Marine
really-
Corps.
You're talking about the military. I mean, look at how many members of the military were fired because they wouldn't take the vaccine, right?
Yep.
Did you watch the trial with the guy from Homeland Security and he was straight called out? Who was it, by Matt from Florida?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, so you're asking forgiveness from us because you made a mistake and it's personal and it's your health care and blah, blah, blah. And you want permission from us. And yet 8,000 people got dishonorably discharged because they wouldn't take a vaccine because of religious reasons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why are you giving them their jobs back?
Right.
Give them the same mercy that you've been shown in your ridiculousness. And he said, no, I will not do that. Well, of course you won't, because you're pompous ass. What's good for thee, but not for me. That's the government.
Like Mayorkas gets impeached, right? It's a purposeful, tactical, systematic approach to undermining the fabric of our society, right? You overwhelm the system, so the system eventually collapses, right?
Right.
You overwhelm it with illegal immigration. You overwhelm it with, supposed diseases. You overwhelm the financial system, right? And so eventually it all crumbles.
And untreated mental illness.
Together.
You have untreated mental illness, nothing for the mentally ill. And then you terrify them with climate change at a very young age. Then you tell them, oh, by the way, if you just paid more money and lived with less, we can fix the weather.
Right.
This is insanity. And then we will turn on neighbors. Neighbors will turn on neighbors over political issues. And yet that's the whole goal. Because that's when they win, because you'll need the government to get you out of it. A government that is too tyrannical at that point. And the Constitution doesn't have the same weight. And you can't fight back because you can't own an automatic rifle. Our military can, but you can't. Right. Because we decided that the Constitution is wrong. Well, I'm sorry. You should be able to own a nuke. Right. If the military can own one, so should you, according to that document. Not that I want you all owning nukes, but what I'm saying is they're put so many restrictions on the United States, our freest country. If you put us in a list of countries of the most free, I think America is very, very far down that list.
Well, and Utah is pretty far down the list of actual political corruption, right? And to get to your point on the Second Amendment, people say, well, you don't need a semi-automatic rifle to go hunting. No, I don't want it to go hunting. I want it to protect me from the government. That's why I want it. That's why
I don't need to tell you anything.
The First Amendment exists to protect me from the government. The Second Amendment exists to protect me from the government. And down the line, they all exist to protect me from the government, right? And as soon as you get away from that, then you're giving the government power, just the same way that Congress has abdicated its role and given all of the power to these regulatory agencies. Congress doesn't even look at what they do. They run an administrative state that you can't fight against because it's just a complete labyrinth of bureaucracy, and Congress is nowhere to be found, right? So we've ceded our power to the administrative state. We've ceded our power in all these different ways, right? The states are ceding power to the federal government. They need an AG that's going to stand up for them, and that's why I want to be in this race. But I think that's the point of view that people need to have. It's not us against our neighbors. It's us against those that want control over our lives, right?
Yes.
And that's not your neighbor, even if they disagree with you. It's the people that are making laws that curtail your freedom because they want the control over your life.
Well, and that's absolute. I mean, that's a great way to end that, because you want a job where you're going to protect my constitutional rights, just like our sheriff has to protect our constitutional rights. And that's the job that everyone's supposed to take. But something happens. Something happens when people get elected. I don't know if you go through this veil of
it's a Bruder film.
It's what are they, like villain veil or something? But all of a sudden, I mean, Congress does nothing about it because they're constantly trying to run for their office and keep their seat. And
or they get in and they have no personal wealth and they get out and they're millionaires. How does that happen?
Good for them.
Well,
it's good for me to do it, but not you. You can't do insider trading. That is frowned
What's
upon.
that cookie lady's name? The lady
Martha Stewart.
Yeah, Martha Stewart. Yeah. How's she doing today?
Cookie lady.
Right.
She used to hang out with Snoop Dogg now, though, so I guess she's okay.
Yeah, I think she's a
You know what the
billionaire
crazy
doing
thing
just fine.
is? I'll bet Martha Stewart would vote for Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. Even
I
after
bet in a heartbeat she would say, I went to jail for what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that she would.
I-
I've seen interviews with her where she's like, it's two-sided. It's a two-tier justice system.
Yeah, her and Snoop Dogg are all in it together.
Here's the thing. We cannot have two tiers of justice in this country. With our justice system gone, we are lost.
Mhm.
And if we can't get it together, I think we have a great AG's office right now. That's just me. I think having a new AG in there, I hope will continue the good that has been started there with the mental health awareness, with the child sex trafficking awareness, and if you need more money to create a victims advocate type department, hell, if it's just one person who looks over this victim's situation, because I have friends who feel like they were lost. They couldn't go to their sheriff. They couldn't go to the prosecutor. And the AG's office is like, look, it's not our jurisdiction. We don't know how to help you. It would be nice for me to be able to say, you know what? There's an office at the AG's that you go in there and tell them what your case is. They'll contact the prosecutor. They'll contact the investigators, and they'll get back to you and either tell you what they can do to help you or tell you why they can't. But people are sitting out there just victimized, and they don't know what to do. I know firsthand what it feels like.
Yeah, I know a lady that has a stalker that the police were on her side, everything else. But when it got before the judge kicks them loose. The stalker's back out on the street.
The same night after assaulting police officers.
A possible threat that same day. The stalker went to her house, acted kooky at the house. The police bust her at the neighbor's house, doing the old Homer Simpson hiding in a bush. Then she gets violent with the police. They haul her in. The judge kicks her loose. How is this rational? How is this? Is it that the jails were too full? They couldn't hold her, or did the judge have? It
wasn't about the jail
have
because
a
the bill was
brunch
only
scheduled
$669.
Yeah, how does this? We're missing something here.
Well, and it gets back to a point that I was making. If you don't have oversight, if there's no consequences for your actions, if no one's looking at that judge's caseload over the course of their career as a judge, I mean, judges can get away with a lot, and they can it's their own fiefdom. Like, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, family court, criminal court. Hey, this is what I think, right? I know the law says this, but I'm going to do this. You want to appeal it? Fine. Be my guest, right?
That's true. And there's no punishment for an appeal that is successful. Family courts have been a runaway nightmare for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Family courts have been a nightmare. And I'm not doing it as
but again, you have to be willing to institute some judicial reforms along with prosecutorial reforms and the political reforms in the office, right? It's just a lot across the board that you have to be willing to stand up and say, this is what needs to happen. And you're going to get flagged from all sides, right? You'll be told that, well, you're not standing up for women's rights. You're not standing up for dad's rights. You're not it's just what works and what doesn't in our system. And having recourse for people to go and say, at least to your point, Holly, at least somebody told me what was going on. I now know what my options are and what I can do. And even if I don't have the money to go hire a lawyer, I know what my options are, right? Right now, we're just leaving people high and dry and like, I get it. You're in danger. Your stalker's back on the street. Good luck.
Yeah. And at least you could say, here's in the Constitution why for a different case. This is why the prosecutor did this. This is why we're not helping. Here's what we can do. I get it. I think, though, when you keep saying all these, judicial reform and prosecutor reform and criminal justice reform, this is a whole lot. And I would love to see someone take it on. I would love to see someone get legislators fire on this, because I want legislators to feel from people that we're done with this two-tier justice system. What happened in Salt Lake City in 2020 it never could have happened out here, because when they had the BLM march out here, every armed citizen in this county was lining in front of the businesses with their guns, watching this parade and saying, hey, have a good parade. Hey, really great. Welcome to our town. But they knew right away, no one is going to get out of line when you have a populace who is who believes in the Constitution, and a sheriff that protects it, and a council that protects it. And this is where we get down to an AG that is going to say, we got your back, all of you.
All of
You protesters, stay in line. Don't violate these people's rights. We'll have your back. You gun owners, stay in line. Don't violate their rights. We have your back. And sheriff, I have your back if you need anything.
And that's the beauty of a community like Tooele, where you can, like, the people know each other, right? And you've built that trust over time, right? And that's the trust that needs to be restored between, you know, city, local, county, and state agencies to say, we've got each other's back. Stay in your lane. Everybody, like, I got your back. The state AG has you. I got you, right? And that's the message that they need to understand. The county sheriffs need to understand, I got you, right? You've got an advocate in this office. We're going to follow the laws, right? But that's the beauty of, you know, in Tooele, people just know each other. It's easy to build and maintain that trust, but you need to have an AG whose top priority is justice, and justice only happens through trust. It's the only way you get there.
It's so true. And again, it's going to be funding. Counties like ours need funding for those people with mental illness, those people with drug addiction. We need to figure out, I know that's not the AG's job, but we need to have mental illness needs to get addressed in this country, and fast. The last few shootings have been done in schools and stuff, mentally ill young people. And we've got to address it, and we've got to go back to having institutions, mental institutions.
You also want to hear another hard part. This is something that not many people are talking about. And this is going to sound idiosyncratic, but we've got to quit sending people with a slight depression to get mass therapy to dwell on their issue, because it's proving that constantly dwelling on that depression makes it worse.
Yeah.
Well,
and the studies have come out. They're out now. You can't, this is what we've been doing. Oh, you've got a slight depression because, you know, your chair has a squeaky wheel at work. Go to therapy. We've got to quit doing that, especially with these little boys and girls that go to school, and the purple-haired teacher that graduated last month that couldn't find their ass with both hands if it was in their back pockets is teaching them that, you know, oh, you come out as whatever in the first grade, let's have a parade, is messing them up. Don't follow that up with therapy, because the constant dwelling on these minor things, if they've got a for real thing, that's for real.
Right.
You know, if they have a real mental issue, you know, bipolar, schizophrenia, one of those, but the depression, it's being proven that if you keep sending them to therapy to dwell on that, it exacerbates it.
Well, because there's money made in it.
Because they don't want to see the person with the real issue.
Some depression medications actually cause more depression and suicidal thoughts.
Big Pharma doesn't
Big
what?
Pharma.
What? We do not
Okay, we have
asperge
to
the good name of Big Pharma on this podcast.
So you watch your mouth, right?
Hey, Trent, give us a closing statement. We've really had a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been a good chat.
I did not expect this day to end as well as it did. We were having a big problem, and I thought this has been a lot of fun. You're very upbeat, and you've got a lot of energy. I'm exhausted.
I'm excited about this. Well, let me finish with a quick story, if I could. So I mentioned early on in the interview, I'm general counsel for a tech firm. We do predictive AI with the military. And the chairman of my board of directors is a retired 4-star general. His name's General Lance W. Lord. He was the first commander of the U.S. Space Command under Trump. He went up through the Air Force, earned his 4th star, and then Trump put him in charge of Space Command.
Awesome.
And
so he's the guy off of The Office in that show, that guy.
That's exactly right. But when you're in his presence, it's a little bit more daunting, I'd say. Yeah, he very much comes across as a 4-star general. And, you know, I went to them because I said, he's a mentor of mine, but at the same time, I wanted his blessing, right? I was going to potentially be leaving this job to go do this job. And I just wanted to talk to him about it. I kind of launched in like, this is why it's important. And these are my issues. And he just said, stop, Trent. He said, you prepare for war, but you don't know when it comes. And when it comes, you fight. And you fight to win. And when you're done, you come back. And whether that's, and I tried to explain to him the deadlines. He's like, I don't care. April, June, November, 4 years, 8 years. You fight until you win, and then you come back. And you're going to have a seat here at this table when you come back. And what it told me is they got me. And that's what I want to be for the people of Utah. I got you. Like I got people that got my back, right? And people have said to me all the time, are you ready for the fight that'll come when you want to audit the electoral system? Are you ready for the fight that'll come when you fight the feds? And yeah, because people got my back. And that's
so he's one of those pre-Millie generals. I
really
like it.
him
Instead of him saying, I've been studying Karl Marx and trying to understand white hatred today.
Right.
Was he wearing a dress when
Yes.
he said this?
No, he was not.
I love him.
Yeah, you would love him. He's great.
That's our admiral that wears a dress, our
Right,
surgeon
right.
admiral.
There you have it. General Lance Lord, letting me know, we got your back.
I love it. I love it. And that's a great way to, you know what? That's a great way for every single person to wake up in the morning and say that to themselves, that if they've got a support group, you know what? Every day is a fight. And when it comes, it comes. Some days are going to be easier than others, but tomorrow's always a new day. When you have someone that supports you and has your back, it's so easy to have other people's.
That's right. That's right. And that's what we need to be. I mean, we talk about everything that's happening in our country. Just have your neighbors back. Don't be a state delegate, right? Have your kids back. Have your spouses back, right? And
even the one that gets in trouble with the law.
That's right. That's right. Well, I really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
You're
and sometimes having your kids back is putting a boot to that back.
Yes. And making it be
That's how my dad saw it. So yeah, that was I agree. That's funny.
It's true. Trent, this was great. Everyone, TrentChristensen.org. That's a Christensen
.com.
or .com. Sorry. That's a SENTRENT CHRISTEN. I better.
LMNOP.
You nailed it. No, you're so close.
And Dwayne said to say, what a great interview. Thank you, Trent.
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna flash it. I've got it pulled up here. Where's it at? There it is. I'm gonna flash it on the screen one last time before we.
Are your kids excited about this run? I bet they're just bored, rolling their eyes, like, oh, they're that age.
They love it. They love that I'm doing something that I love. And they can see that. Like, this is important to you, Dad. I get that, and I love that for you, right? And
keep me out of it.
Exactly. I don't want to go to your political meetings, but just good luck with that stuff, Dad. Yeah,
I've got one of those kids that's like, I'm not going to your meetings, and another one's like, I'll go.
He came to Tooele with me. My oldest, he came. He loves it. He loves being a part of it. He loves seeing people that care enough about their community to come out to things like this. So
my son is the same. My daughter, not so much. My son, he loves it.
As they start getting older and start wanting to know what's going on in the world around them, and let's face it, they're going to be left running that world. And I just thank the good Lord every day that I am going to be left with the purple-haired nitwits taking care of me.
He's an atheist, so that's a funny sentence coming from him. But yeah,
I just feel blessed that what's that girl from Sweden? The girl that quit going to school. Her eyes are a little too far apart. Makes you wonder. Greta Thunberg and David Hogg. Those guys, those guys are going to take care of me when I'm old.
No, our kids are our future, right? And you leave them with a good legacy. We show them how to do the work, and they'll make us proud.
I don't know.
Jared always says though, bad times create strong men. And weak times or good times create weak men.
And we've gone through the good times.
We have weak men.
But there are two places being born right now. I'm just going to have to hop a fence and go to either El Salvador or Argentina and see what freedom and prosperity looks like.
Yeah, we could just reelect Trump. I think that would fix a lot of this. So
I hope so. I hope so.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
I think the shakeup we need is bigger than one man.
Well, I think you're trying to start a new conversation as we're saying goodbye.
All right, we got to go. Remember, Ken Burns may do a documentary about this time one day.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trent. Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That was Trent Christensen. TrentChristensen.com. That's SEN.
He has a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Both of us, I think, when this started, we're kind of like a little bit wiped out.
What? Our computer crash on us wiped us out? No.
Oh, and then all of a sudden I find myself going, well, yeah. it's so great to
Yeah.
have this one-on-one with
It's a good
candidates, especially if you do care about voting and how you vote. A lot of people don't get into this stuff. I appreciate that. And a lot of people probably don't think either one of us are their cup of tea, but we appreciate that you
Come
tune
on,
in
what?
to get to know these
You
candidates.
guys wouldn't
because
elect me to
this
any
is
kind
so
of office.
important that you try to get to know not just their plan, but find out their why.
Mhm.
Why are they running? And what do you see happening if they're elected? Look long term. We've had Heather Terry or
Mhm.
Rachel Terry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Rachel.
We've had Rachel Terry on, and she is amazing.
She was good too. Yeah.
Amazing. And Trent is really, I mean, he's
good also.
He's really great. I'd like to get Derek Brown on because I think Derek is also an amazing person. This job requires somebody that's going to be amazing inside and out, and they live by example, because this job is, again, top cop. So they
Mhm.
have to have a moral compass that is. I mean, we can't have any drama with.
I've got a question for you.
You interrupted me to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. You never do that.
You know how he was talking about how they were trying to kind of move the AG under the purview of the governor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's because our current AG became kind of a big name in the field? They wanted to remove him.
I think it was
play?
a couple of things, because it wasn't just the AG's office. It was also the state school board. In the interview he's discussing, the school board was in there with it.
Really?
So I don't know if it was something that the school board did or if it was something the AG's office did. I really know that this was floated by a person, and the governor was interviewed regarding this potential.
Mhm.
And he said he would, he'd be open to anything if he heard. I think he said if you could convince him or something. But man, the very thought school board or AG had people livid. So if the governor, and I don't want to speak for him by any means, but if he was even considering it, I think the fallout from that would probably have him reconsider pretty quickly, because that's what a lot of people were saying. That's a tyrant. When you start taking duly elected offices and putting them under the umbrella of one leader,
Yeah.
Sorry, there's no checks and balances anymore. I mean, it's genius if you want absolute power, but if you want to live in a republic, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of school boards are appointed in other states.
Yeah.
I don't know how many AGs are appointed in other states, but
That is true. It starts seeming like it could become dictatorial really quick.
can you imagine the
circumstance like
governor
that.
controlling the DOJ? It's almost like the president controlling the DOJ.
Yeah,
Don't you see a problem with that?
that's
how
rough.
you
I mean,
arrest
look at how our
your
DOJ is
adversaries.
operating right now. I mean,
Absolutely.
our DOJ is, anyways, we just got to make sure that we get Trump off all the ballots we can and charge him with everything. Trump breathed oxygen the other day. Oh, fall over. That's just where we're at. It's getting insane. So,
okay, Trent Christensen. So if you want to get
Yep.
to know more about him, again, go to your caucus, folks. If you tuned into this interview with him, go to your caucus, bring up his name, talk about him. Talk about what you learned today. Get on his website. If you really, really like him, offer to volunteer for him. Maybe throw him a few bucks. The thing that we want to make clear and what we want to do is to make sure you're getting access to these people so that, they have an effect on your life. Whoever gets
Mhm.
voted for and put in those seats will affect your life more than anyone in DC. So,
yep. Yeah. And we're going to make sure we have an opportunity for everyone running for that office, even the Democrat, or God forbid, if there's a libertarian AG, which sounds way weird in my head. I said that out loud too. We want to make sure they
I
all
don't even
come
know
on.
what that would look like.
I know. Well, they hate me in. But anyways, Yeah, but let's have a cool transition so that I can cut his interview up.
Have you heard that places like Portland are starting to backtrack on the legalizing drugs
Yes, they kind of
Because
have to because
of the crime and homelessness?
crime, needles, and poo in the streets. You can only live with that for so long. There is probably a clock out there somewhere that says you go past this and you can't do it anymore. Crime, needles, poo in the streets.
So they had legalized most drugs.
No, they
in-
legalized everything in Portland,
Yeah.
like across the board.
So
like you want to.
now they're just scaling it back. And one, because who would have thought by legalizing heroin, you would have a whole generation of heroin abusers?
Not just heroin, but they legalized the open use of fentanyl in the streets.
I don't even know
open
how
use.
you could take fentanyl.
Oh, well, they lace it on other drugs, they smoke it, and they inject it. Same
Right.
way as heroin.
But don't they produce it for the state? That's how they're making money.
What do you mean?
The state legalizes it and then they sell it.
I don't.
Because
What they
maybe
legalized,
it's not illegal to
they legalized consuming it in public
but you
areas.
can't sell it in large quantities, I believe. There's something there because, like, if you legalize pot in Colorado gets a tax off of every
Sure.
bud sold. So does Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So does California.
What they legalized in Portland was open use.
Insane.
So they're public.
Here,
you can
go
watch.
smoke meth.
You can watch
and make your
videos
good
of their
choices.
public parks. They look like, I'm telling you, it's zombie land. I went up to Oregon the end of 2022 for a family vacation. Me and my siblings and all these kids went up there. We went to, I forget the name of the place where Fred used to live. Anyways, it's not a great big town. Maybe half again bigger than Tooele, maybe, or the same size as Tooele. Had a Walmart. So it was big enough to have a Walmart. It is zombie land where those people use drugs
Yeah, I'm not
openly like
surprised.
that.
And the homelessness is atrocious.
Oh, down at the beach, because we were on the ocean. Down at the
and
beach,
it's not a hot, warm beach either, people.
that beach was beautiful.
Beautiful, but there's times a year you go.
Oh, yeah.
And there's times you don't.
This
and these people
place
are living there.
This place doesn't get below 48 and doesn't get above like 83.
Oh,
it is-
sounds like paradise
It is where Jared is meant to live.
with all the crackheads.
But there's a lot of crackheads there.
That's terrifying.
But you'd see them, you're driving down the road and they're shadow boxing a street pole or arguing with each other. It was just insane
we
to
don't
watch.
need a zombie apocalypse. We just need everybody legalize heroin,
Dude,
and that's what you have is a zombie apocalypse.
It looked exactly like the zombie movies. These people, they're shuffling and twitching and they got that dance going on. And the one guy, like his pants might have been over his calves on the back, maybe that high. I don't know. It was insane.
So
All right. So yesterday, was it yesterday? Yesterday, yes. A child got hit here in Tooele by a car right over at the park, just right down the road from me.
oh yeah.
And
What,
it gets
how far down the road from you? Like
that-
in this neighborhood?
that park right there next to the school.
Was he okay?
They hauled the kid. He's in good condition. First they called a life flight, but then they called life flight off, and he was able to do a regular ambulance ride in. So it sounds like he's not in critical condition or in any danger. But I do want to mention, like I guess a PSA. That's especially Settlement Elementary. But if you're driving by
Every
a park,
elementary or park.
you've got to slow it down. You've got to really pay attention. A couple things. One, I drive slower. You know how some people drive real close to parked cars on the side of the road? I back space off wherever I can to make sure I've got just any more reaction time I can eke out of it. Because those kids, they dart in and out. I would love to say, hey, parents, teach your kids not to do that. I'm sure that'll
Kids,
work
they
one
do
day, but it's not working today.
Well, I have
I-
something to tell you that I know from research, and I just had this conversation with my husband yesterday. Why is the speed limit 25 miles an hour in your neighborhood? And you ask yourself that. That's weird. Why 25? Why not 24? Why not 20? Why not 10? Well, they've shown that a person in a pedestrian accident hit at 25 miles an hour has a higher rate of survival than getting hit at even 30.
Really? It's just enough to bounce them off, but not
Usually
enough to bust them up.
To kill them.
But if it's
25
slower, they might get like run right over.
If it's way slow and someone darts out, it's a clump, clump if they're not seen. Again, it's always better to be slower than fast, but just the difference between a couple miles an hour, which is why they set that 25 miles per hour, just because of the impact it has on a pedestrian. And so when you are driving through a neighborhood, I know sometimes you get to 40 miles an hour and go, oh my gosh, I got to slow down, because you're not thinking. There's a reason it's set at that. And so you want to make sure, if you can be in neighborhoods and stay 25 or less. I know it's annoying when you're behind someone who's doing 20 into 25, but I can't think of any bigger nightmare than having your child hit.
Or hitting a child. Hitting a child, that'd ruin me.
Yeah. That would
so
be
right now I
horrendous.
need a rainbow and a star. Do, 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 do.
The more you know.
Yep. But seriously, yeah, slow down, watch out, especially parks. Summer's starting. Right now, the kids have been cooped up, which means they're retarded. They're going to be like wild animals out there, darting and running and zipping around. They want to try out all that stuff they got for Christmas that really wasn't quite able to use. Be extra careful
It
right
snowed
now.
2 days ago.
I know, but
you act like it's summer fun. The gopher saw its shadow, and you're like, oh, spring's here. Meanwhile, it is storming outside. We
I
lost
just
internet.
drove by there the other day, and it's full of kids. All the kids are there.
It's a park.
So
And did you say there's a school
true.
too?
Yeah, it's right next to Settlement Elementary.
You know,
It's the
school's
park with
back
the
in
skate
session?
park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but watch out. The
That's where
kids,
kids hang out, by the
the
way.
kids are. He didn't get hit at the school. Got hit
Wow.
at the park after school time.
That's another thing about skate parks. You got to be careful you don't hit a kid who's when you're skating. I've seen kids get bad injuries by getting hit by other skaters.
Oh yeah, yeah. But those are kid-on-kid violence.
Yeah.
I condone kid. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, I just wanted to say, be careful. It's a tragedy. I couldn't imagine hitting a kid in a car. I couldn't imagine it. I'd be rough. So, all right. This is a little fun story, dork story, whatever. So there's a family in Payson, the Estises. They have 3 kids that are all leap year kids.
I want to know what happened 9 months before leap year.
The first one, accident. They're claiming the second one, accident. The third one on purpose.
Happening? Give me 40 weeks
I think
before leap year. What is going on? Is it
I think
4th of
Dad.
July?
I think
Like, what are they celebrating where they're like, hey, let's just
well,
have some fun?
I think I don't know, but how
Math is
wild
hard.
is that? 3. So the oldest kid is. It says okay. You've got 5, 4, and 3, which means the oldest one is, if you're measuring by leap years, is 5, which means the oldest one is 20. The second oldest one is 16, and the third oldest one is 12. Oh, Holly's doing the numbers. She's going to get it, but by their ages in leap years, by their actual birthday, the oldest one, who's 20, adult, living by themselves, is 5. The second oldest one, is 4.
I want to know when their anniversary is, because they make babies in May, usually like around the 18th.
They're breaking it down, but not
That's
just
my
in
anniversary. Actually.
not just in May. They're making it in May every 4 years.
Right. That's why I'm thinking.
So
it's
I'm
probably
thinking-
an anniversary.
I'm thinking Dad is holding it together for 4 years.
Oh, they're doing it all the time. I
You think?
guarantee it. Yeah.
Huh.
Absolutely. They probably are real healthy there, but I think it's probably
I
their
hope so.
anniversary or someone's birthday. And they're like, because that's not a holiday. It's May 18th is 40 weeks.
Is that
from-
your anniversary?
That is my anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
And
You
my
missed
birthday's
out.
the 20th. My husband's the 8th. My other daughter's the 24th. So we're like all May.
You missed out. You could have made some of the leave your babies. You could have done it.
I planned, well, I didn't plan my first one. He was a miracle, but we planned our second.
Good. All right. Got a half hour left. If anyone wants to call in, call in. Oh, actually, don't call in. Phone lines aren't open. Dwayne had to go do some stuff. Okay. 5K in fentanyl pills and 43K in cash seized in large drug bust. So in Magna, 2 Honduran nationals were arrested Thursday with 5K in fentanyl pills. And I've heard fentanyl is rather cheap on street price, but it says they had 50,000 fentanyl pills.
How many people would that kill? That could kill
Oh, 50,000 people, easy.
at least. Fentanyl in dust form can kill
Easy.
way more.
Now, I'm sure this stuff stepped on and, whatever, but 50,000. That's insane. What are we doing? What are we doing at the border? This is coming across. This is how you destroy a nation. This is how you take it over.
Well, you kill a generation of kids too. You kill a generation of kids and adults who are in depression or struggling with mental illness, and they take a drug for something they think it's going to be, and then they die. And you weaken a country with devastation and grief. I mean, grief is an animal all by itself, and people who have been through it, I'm telling you, they know what I mean. There's this deep-seated grief that is unlike anything you'll ever experience. And you go through that. It's hard to get up in the morning and face the day and keep fighting. But when there's just a design to wipe out young people, to take out people, to overthrow a nation, like you really got to focus on getting up every day and fighting and not giving up.
It's almost, I don't know. I can't imagine even, well, I've read Jonathan Haidt. I understand where their mind's at, but I can't imagine it's there. Like, I think back to Georgia. This Georgia college student has friends in college. She got killed right off the campus. This college is extremely progressive and everything else. Will this wake them up and they'll say, what is going on? I mean,
They should have woke up 3 years ago.
they really should have. All right. We got a half hour left. Can't take calls. Otherwise, I'd open that up. But Dwayne has left the shop. He's got to go handle some business. So I want to finish off the show talking about Aaron Bushnell.
Why?
You know who that is?
From Utah?
No. It's that Air Force guy who went to the Israeli embassy and lit himself a light.
Yeah. Okay. I know another Bushnell.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So I'm like, what?
Common name. Is your Aaron Bushnell?
No, he's not in the military or anything.
Okay. So this guy, I don't know. Remember when we had our, not argument, but maybe you thought it was an argument, but was me kind of pointing out stuff that I think Israel's going to have a hard time going forward in the future because of the way
Perception
culture is moving. Aaron Bushnell, I haven't looked up any of his stuff. I'd like to claim I did. I've just listened and read people who did. He was essentially a devout Marxist in our Air Force.
Oh, I love how this story is beginning.
And I imagine, thinking about it, our military, especially after what we just talked about with the COVID ejections, is full of that.
I'm sure they weeded out anybody who wasn't, and they kept those in there.
That might have been on purpose.
Yeah, of course it was.
And now you've got Dick Durbin saying, let's give all these illegals a pathway and get them into the military, which makes a military that you can. I used to have a theory that if the government wanted to use the military against us, they would have to start splitting the different units so that you had a unit stationed in New York that was full of probably mostly Texans, Arizonans, New Mexicans, maybe Southern Colorado, maybe Louisiana, but they're up in New York, and then you call them in to deal with some civil strife. But down in Texas, you have a whole bunch of New Yorkers, maybe a whole bunch of Portlanders, whatever.
Lefties.
Not even left or right, geographically separate from where they are stationed, so that if they get called to do some civil stuff, they don't have that familiar
Absolutely.
draw.
But they're
And then-
totally out of their element.
and then violence happens in one will ratchet up violence in the other. I used to think that, but now I'm kind of thinking run the political people you don't like out, backfill it with people who will owe their allegiance to you because you're the one who gave them the job that gives them the pathway to citizenship.
AKA and power.
And then you can just send them out to
Can
do
you imagine how
whatever.
much work our drug cartels in Mexico could do if they were members of our military? Open up their operation.
Well, they wouldn't want to do that because our military doesn't get paid enough.
That's the thing, though. They don't
But-
have to get paid to do that. They would be using it as a front,
I'm just
which you
afraid
could
that
avoid by not letting someone who's illegal be in the military.
what are you going to do when the next time they send out an MP unit or an infantry unit or whatever to deal with civil strife like they did during the LA riots? What are you going to do when those people no longer have any thoughts of the ideals of the United States? You've got a general over here
What are you
who
going to do? Who are you going to get to be in the military? Are you saying that the government's going to employ
Dick
illegal
Durbin
immigrants?
is trying to put forth a bill
Dick isn't going to get it.
that states that a pathway to citizenship is to join the military.
Still, I don't think it's going to, if it goes through, there'd have to be so many things
Okay.
through that.
Let's
But
even say
I
he
think
doesn't
there's
get that.
enough good people that are in the military.
Sure.
and plenty that come from states with reason and
Especially
the high recruit states, for example.
especially pre-2020, there was really good people. It was probably most of the people in the military.
What do you mean?
Well, the COVID that drummed them out.
Well, right. But I'm saying that before you go bring in illegals, you let those people back in. If they would even
How
want
many of
to.
those people are going back in?
I don't know. Some people
They
just
were
are patriotic
they
and
were
wanna
out for
serve.
2 years. They lost all that promotion, all that pay.
They didn't get the jab.
Well, I'm saying they're better off, but would they want to go back in?
I wouldn't blame them if they didn't.
I wouldn't blame them at
But
all.
I also don't want to have a draft implemented.
No, I don't
So
want to
if
draft.
something has to be done. I mean, if an illegal immigrant wanted to serve in the military, first of all, I want them to come through the front door. Full background check. I want to know
I
everything
think
about
you're
them.
missing what I'm asking.
You're saying no one would join.
No,
so who would we
you're
have?
totally missing what I'm asking.
Well, then ask it directly.
Okay. So there was a guy in Utah, National Guard, got sent down
That's
to.
not directly.
No, I've got to lay this out. Do you think an illegal immigrant joining the military will, when given orders to, say, disarm you, or maybe illegally detain you, or maybe point his weapon at you and squeeze the
Our
trigger?
military did that already without illegals.
Sure. But there were some in the military that stood up against it, like the Utah National Guardsman that got sent down to Katrina and refused orders and got drummed out of the Utah National Guard.
Well,
But
there's a
he
whole bunch of
refused
them that did
orders.
it.
He refused orders to disarm the people there. There was a Marine unit, a Marine infantry unit that got absorbed into the California National Guards during the 94 riots. Was it 94 or 93? The whatever that guy's name was, riots.
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah. They got sent there, Marine unit from from San Diego got sent to the LA riots, right? They manned the roadblocks. The National Guard got put on the rear with the gear. But when it came out, because this Marine unit saw some light action, when it came out, it was tried to be reported at first that it was the National Guard that was attacked and fired back, when it was a active duty Marine unit, which broke, the
rules. You can't fire on your own citizens.
No, you can't use the military on U.S. soil.
On your own citizens. I get it.
Yeah, like they can't even be there.
Well, that's, again, you're trying to make an assumption based on moral leadership, and we don't have that, so nothing would surprise me. Who's going to order that? That's the person needs to be
Millie would in a heartbeat.
That's the person that should be tried for treason.
Well, I don't know. Millie would, unless it was, say, an underprivileged minority community. Then he would order the military to, I don't know, lay on the ground.
Whoever disarmed those people in New Orleans, they weren't underprivileged. Those people were protecting a location, and they were disarmed by our military. And that is absolutely crap. And I think, who was it? Is that National Guard?
That was the Utah National Guard.
That one, not that situation. This was a different, all of them disarmed them. No one stood up and goes, I'm not doing it.
The cops did, but a Utah National Guard refused to. It was, I believe it was an E6 at the time. I've extended the invite to come on the show twice. He still lives in Utah. He doesn't want to talk about it because it drummed him out.
Well, he should be given a medal.
He should.
The future is bleak. And here's the problem. It's a two-way street. Yes, our military is getting run by clowns right now in dresses, but we get what we give. If our young people aren't willing to sign up and serve good people who believe in the Constitution and protecting it, I'm afraid of what the future looks like, because numbers are down. Then what happens if our military is depleted? They got to instate a draft.
Well, my concern is what they're going to do is they're going to backfill the ranks with people who hold no allegiance to the U.S., to the Constitution, or even
then
to
they're idiots.
Or even
then they
to
get an
a
insurrection based on the own military they chose, and a drug cartel takes over the White House
who
and runs
interrupted
this
who now?
country. It's just crazy. Who would do that? They think that wouldn't happen to them.
People who want the total control, maybe want to disarm a nation, they would do that in a heartbeat.
But they would lose control, because if they get the wrong people in there, they will lose that control to that group that joins the military.
I think maybe, but I think they're thinking that they would have a unit of allegiance.
I think they would, but
because the allegiance would be to them. Because instead of when I was in the military, I'm in there and I come from small town Utah.
Yeah.
That's who I'm in here for. That's why I'm here.
Right.
I'm here to
You're
represent small town Utah. Those guys are in there. They're saying, I'm from Dick Durbin got me here. I'm here to represent Dick Durbin, or I'm here to represent insert senator or congressperson.
Right.
That I am here because they gave me this pathway.
I get that.
And the next thing you know,
come back to where they're really loyal to, which is their own nation. And
sure.
If somebody said, hey, you got all these militaries from Mexico, for example, and we want to take back Texas, and you guys are all in the military, let's take back Texas. Their loyalty will be eventually found out.
Sure, they could.
Dick Durbin's an idiot to do that.
I didn't say he wasn't.
He's just stupid. If that's what he does, then that's why I say we still need people with good compasses, good moral compasses, to still join the military, and in their states, at least in their own state National Guards, because if certain states are going to let illegals in.
Do you think these things they've done that has ran conservatives out of the military, do you think it was done on purpose to run them out, or do you think it was short-sightedness mistakes they made?
No, I think it absolutely was, because they wouldn't have been asked their political views, and during that time, a lot said they were.
Mhm.
ask their political views. And that's so inappropriate because the military has a commander in chief. It doesn't matter if it's Obama, if it's Trump, it doesn't matter. They serve the United States of America and they serve the people of America, protect the Constitution of America. They were asked those specific questions.
You know, Obama depleted the field grade officer corps.
And the Navy.
The field grade officer corps runs all of them.
I mean, like the Navy was missing so many ships and just equipment. When Trump got in, he's like, what the hell's wrong with our military? Why are we missing all this stuff? Why are these guys buying their own bulletproof vests and taking them with them on deployment? I mean, these type of things should be paid for. Especially when our military is worth more than most countries' GDPs.
So this is in this was written in 2013. And I read it through a different, this is investors.com. I don't know what the heck that magazine is, but I'm sure it's great. But it was a story that came out, and it was how Obama purged 197 officers in 5 years.
Yeah, because they were disloyal to him.
I read it was a political purge, but it was mostly field grade officers, which is your field grade officer corps is your majors through your colonels, or majors through colonels. Those are your officers that manage battalions and brigades, regiments, things like that, larger elements. So he washed all them out, which is where Milley moves in. Milley moves up the ranks because he's amenable to Obama. Milley's I don't think Milley has a political bone in his body except what will get me the next star or the next grade. That's how Milley operates, which is why Milley comes out. I'm reading Karl Marx. Karl Marx has nothing to do with any excellence in the military or being generals are notoriously political, but that's how they moved in, because Obama was one of the first times our military was made political. And by flushing out 197 field grade officers, like pinpointed those officers, so he didn't touch the general corps, because you touch that and that makes waves. Those are the guys that are on TV that everyone knows. But you touch that field grade corps, then you can move your political cronies into that. And those are the next generals, the generals that Trump gets to try to say leave Syria with, which worked notoriously well.
I would actually be fine when Trump got in if he did the same thing and if he purged a few people. If he put the military back to the standards that our military had before all this crazy started happening, I'd be okay with that. Bring the standards back up to what the physical standards are in order to be a Navy SEAL, in order to be to pass boot camp. Not lower the standards, put them back to what they were. Don't ask, don't tell. I don't see a problem with that. You keep it to yourself, and you don't get bullied or beaten up or whatever, because no one knows who people love in the military. But you don't tell the world you're a woman as the ambassador. This craziness that's happening, and the military's paying for sex changes. When did the military get into that? They won't even pay for a lot of head injuries that people get in action.
Don't you know that
the VA is a mess?
If you give what do they call it, sexual affirming surgery, it makes you more combat effective.
And I
tried saying that with a straight
Bravo
face.
Sierra.
Oh, no, I agree with you. But no, the officer corps is, I think, where it pivots, because officers move militaries.
And
they really do.
Also go to colleges, all these big colleges. They go to officer training schools. So
but
it's a fine line. But again, do I think it's okay for Obama to do it? No. Here I'm saying it might be okay for Trump, but no, I want the military to be set back, because Hitler did that.
I want the military to be apolitical.
And they were a weapon against the people. And that's what apolitical is, just it. So if Trump goes in and goes, look, no ask, don't tell what your political affiliation is. Let's start with that.
Well, Obama moved them out. They had a couple of questionnaires that came out that I saw that senior enlisted. I saw some of theirs, and it asked them questions that would feel them out, so that they weren't openly asking, "Are you Democrat or Republican?" Or they would ask them questions that would fill out their mentality. I heard the officers' ones were worse, but yeah. That does, and when I say senior NCOs, I'm talking your staff, sergeants, but mostly into master sergeant level. But yeah, it's.
I think that the military's in trouble. We need more recruits.
I think
We're
the
lacking
U.S. is in
recruits.
trouble.
Absolutely, but the military is
But,
a strong reflection of
maybe
the United
if-
States.
But I've also been a proponent of we need to go back to pre-World War II levels of military, where we have a robust National Guard, Army Reserve, but a rather light active duty military.
Then you have to stop being the world's police. You get out of
Oh.
NATO, and
Oh,
you quit giving them the big GDP
this is pornography.
size of budgets, and you get rid of these ABC departments that are working in Homeland Security. We've gotten so bloated, and by design. These people are so patient. This is all by design, and you got to know that. Like, I don't even know. You know what? If we could go back to any time, one good time to go back would be when JFK was killed by our government, allegedly. I think we would have put a stop to the FBI, CIA, and all of that had we done more in that to actually the American people go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Second gunman, grassy knoll, what are you talking about? Why was the FBI?
What
this,
if they
this,
would
this,
have
and
just
this?
listened to Eisenhower
When?
when he gave the
Military industrial complex.
yeah,
speech?
when he introduced that word into the lexicon?
Because they knew better. It's because why didn't they listen to Washington and said avoid a two-party system? It'll be the detriment of you all.
Mhm.
That is the problem.
And standing armies.
Everybody thinks that they know best because power consumes everyone.
I honestly think you can't avoid it. I think societies are a mechanism that always moves in a direction till it gets too big and too bloated and fails.
Well,
Because it keeps happening everywhere. Every
society.
society it happens to.
It's because they want a king, they want a leader, and they'll gladly follow.
Even when they don't,
And
even when
those
they
that
go with
don't
the
follow tend to go off and survive on their own, or they're overwhelmed and destroyed by the group.
I think societies, it happens to every one of them. Everyone, there's not one that escaped it.
So do you think it's possible that humans lived millions of years ago and had this amazing society and technologically huge
I
society?
love that stuff.
And
I
then
don't know.
all of a sudden they wiped themselves out and we started
okay.
over? Because I want to make the show more fun. This last 30
Okay,
minutes
let's finish
has kind
up.
of been yawner.
We got 10 minutes left.
Trent Christensen
Okay,
to-
do I think that humans are older than the projected that archaeologists give us now?
I know it's a conspiracy theory.
Yes, I do think they are.
And do you think they would have wiped themselves out with technology?
Do I think they wiped themselves out with technology like the Atlantis Lemuria theory? No.
I don't mean Atlantis. I mean like they had something equivalent to a nuke.
That's
that
the
vaporized them
Atlantis
all.
Lemurian theory. They went to war and wiped themselves out. I actually am more a believer of polar shifts.
Go on, because I don't know what that is.
Okay, the polar shift.
You act like I'm going to say, oh, of
Okay.
course. Polar shift.
So there's a couple things. Look up the tennis racket theory. I spelled it wrong, probably. The tennis racket theory was discovered by a stupid thing. Tennis racket theory was discovered by a Russian on the satellite. And so you would start spinning a tennis racket in 0G, right? So the tennis racket is spinning and spinning and spinning. And every so often, the tennis racket would flip, right? So then you go deeper into that. There is evidence that our poles have shifted in the past. They can tell it by magnetic bits in rocks, right? They know this. They've studied it. They know it. Our poles have shifted. It's a real thing that's happened.
They have found like tropical climates and things existed.
Yeah,
in our
Antarctica.
poles.
Yeah, well, all that. And we know the Sahara was whatever.
Richard Lewis died today.
Who's Richard Lewis?
The comedian. He would always do this when he talked.
Oh, yeah.
I
And
really liked him.
and then, of course, the Richat structure or the Eye of the Sahara was actually Atlantis, but we don't need to go into that today, guys. But anyways, have you ever seen the Richat structure?
No, and this is all Chinese. I just wanted a question answered.
But
if
no,
you think it's possible.
I think nature knocks us down every so often.
What does that have to do with a tennis racket?
It's the tennis racket theory. This is where the theory got started. This is where the theory got started as to why the poles shift. Because a guy, he spun a tennis racket on the space station and it's sitting there doing this. And then as it's going, it just whoop and spins over, it flips over the other way. No, nothing touched it. And it goes a little more. And then whoop, flips over again.
So you'd have to believe that there is actually a space station up there in space.
Oh,
For this.
easy. Now, okay. The space station on the flat Earth is actually held by fishing line
String.
by the ice walls. So here's the Richat structure.
You guys, I don't mean to make you dumber. I promise. I was just trying to get us into a more.
Look at that. If you've
fun
ever read
topic.
the story of Atlantis as Plato brought to you, and then you look at the Richat structure.
Okay, so I just wondered because
Look at
if
that.
human
That is
population
beautiful.
has existed for millions of years and they've wiped themselves out before, it's a theory I've heard, but I'm not going down any more rabbit holes. It's time for us to turn the show off, I think.
God, look at that. Isn't that a beautiful, I'm going to show this on screen. So this is in Africa and Mauritania. And
They filmed that space movie with what's her name? With Sandra Bullock. I think she wakes up here.
yeah, never saw it. But look at that. Isn't that just forget about whether you believe in
It doesn't look real.
Atlantis or whatever that. But isn't that just, it's probably caused by a volcano and everything else, but just,
What do you think it's caused by?
they say it's like a volcanic bubble
Where's the volcano?
right there.
Is it inactive?
Yeah. But
Because you want to talk about volcanoes. Let's talk about the volcano under Yellowstone and what kind of detriment that would do to
yeah,
at least the citizens of Utah.
dude, that's an ender. That's done. Party ended.
And they said that the last time it went off is 1,000 years, or it goes off every 1,000 years.
Something like that.
So what if that destroyed society 1,000 years ago?
Oh, I didn't show this. I forgot to push the button to show it. Sorry, guys. I'm
Oh,
going
my
to show
word.
it right now. I know.
This is terrible
I'm so dumb.
television.
So dumb. Okay. Should be sharing right now. Right. Boom. There it is. The Richat structure. It's huge. It's 100 miles across. There's a little village, a little town there too. But look at that. It's a beautiful natural thing. So it's in Mauritania, like right there, middle of nowhere. Sahara Desert is everywhere around it.
I think the problem with America is that we don't have maps.
Oh, look at that beautiful. It's amazing looking.
It is. I want to
It's
fill it
huge.
with water.
We're talking 100, well, probably not 100, like 70 miles across, 60 miles across.
Why does it say false
huge.
color?
They didn't discover it
Why does it say
until we
false
sent
color on there.
people to the moon.
Did
I
they
don't
color
know.
it in?
I have no clue.
So you're saying we did send people to the moon?
Okay, so The moon is actually a mirror light. That is one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen. Right there, the Ricotte structure. It just looks so. The texture of it and it
How do
looks
people
so
live
brutal.
there? It doesn't look like there's any
There is
natural
actually like a
resources.
little town right over here or over there. I don't know. I have to look at Google Earth, but there's a little town right around it.
It's so romantic. I'm so glad
That's
you
just
shared this today.
I know. I had to bring up
You should go there one day.
I would love to. It's notoriously
It's in
hard to
Africa?
go to. Yes, it's in Mauritania. It's in a nation that has allowed filming of that twice.
I think we lost our audience.
We lost our audience right as soon as Trent left. But yeah, they've allowed filming there twice in like 60 years, twice.
Who's they? Who
Mauritania.
controls it? Mauritania. You say is like
It's a Islamic
the
nation.
tiny village you were talking about, or is that a
Oh,
whole
it's a
other
nation.
state
It's
type world?
It's a nation.
Okay. Guys, I am going to thank you for tuning in today and putting up with our chaos with the internet for a little bit. I hope yours is safe. I know it's windy. March is coming in like a lion, right? Like on
Mhm.
cue. Last night the wind was so loud. I hope you have a very, very safe weekend, and we will see you back here next week. Jared and I, of course, we have caucus coming up on the 5th. It's Tuesday night. I can't wait for Wednesday morning. Not going to lie. And then next week, we are pretty excited. We haven't got that yet, but we've asked for special guests to come and
Right.
share some time with us. That'll be the 8th. It's also my kid's big birthday.
Yes.
So he may get the day off. But we always appreciate your support and we love having fun with you. And I hope that you got something from this interview today with Trent, and look at his website, consider him as a Republican candidate. And then if you guys know someone you want us to interview, or you know someone, running in the Democrat race or
Yeah,
whatever,
send the Democrats to us.
we'll be nice. We're equal opportunists here. We want to hear what's on in the political both sides. And like we said before, these are our neighbors. And I would like to hear from our neighbors as much as I want to hear from, people running for office on my side and from my party. I'd like to hear from the other side, and just to see, because I care about my neighbors and I know we don't agree on everything. So it helps us kind of touch base with, and we'll get to see where we agree. At the end of the day, we're still neighbors. And it's a pleasure for me. I know it is for Jared, that we get to be on the show with you guys, and that you endure with us and you support our channel. So if you please, thinking over to Main Street Media Utah and like and subscribe, be a subscriber on that media outlet. Like and subscribe our pages on Rumble, on YouTube. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, X, sorry. But on YouTube, if you like and hit that subscribe button, you'll get notifications. And so you'll know every time we come on. So I'm going to say goodnight.
Yes. Have a good night, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.